Great. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this May 21st, 2025 meeting of the Transportation Planning Committee here in Boulevard 4. Thank you for everyone who's here in person and to those of us joining from the community online. As always, we have a full agenda, a lot to discuss. So I'm going to jump right into our regular preamble, which is just to remind everyone that we have a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability and or an extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. This meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel and a transcript is being recorded. Do we have anyone from the committee online? I don't think so.
I don't.
But maybe Charlie will join a little bit later. We know Charlie will be a little late tonight. Let's just go around the room real quickly, as we always do, just introduce ourselves to anyone who that might be their first meeting. So hello, I am Jesse Greenwald. I am one of the co-chairs of this committee.
Christine Birthday, co-chair.
Alan Austin, member.
Rodney Washington, member.
Diaz, member. David Warren, member.
XCC member. Sandra Miller, member. Thomas Garza, member.
Great. All right, let's jump right into it. We have tonight a presentation from the DOT on the 34th Street Busway proposal. And just as a reminder, we've already voted on this exact proposal even before hearing it.
Conceptual.
Conceptual. We've voted on the idea and we've been in support of the idea. So now we're going to get into the specifics tonight and actually hear what's going on and maybe comment and then great questions. So who is here from DOT presenting?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's Colleen Chattagoon from City Department of Transportation. Thank you so much for having us this evening to give the presentation on the 34th Street Busway. Joining me tonight is my colleague Phil Bedell from our Transit Development Division, as well as our colleagues from the MTA. And I see Rob Thompson is with us tonight. So my colleague Phil will be starting the presentation, and then MTA will join in as well. So thank you so much for hosting us this evening.
Great, thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. As Colleen mentioned, my name is Philip Bethel. I'm the Deputy Director for Bus Priority here at New York City DOT, and I'm joined by my colleagues at the MTA, Rob Thompson and Mariah Richardson. And we're very excited to talk to you about the 34th Street Busway. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And with any luck, that's visible to folks?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, so let's get into it. So I'm going to walk us through first table of contents. We'll be talking about our background that we've looked at and the work to date, including since we last spoke to you in January. We'll be talking through a draft proposal for a busway. We'll be talking through the traffic analysis that undergirds some of that work and the work that continues, and then a summary and next steps where we're going from here. So why 34th Street? We've been looking at 34th Street from river to river, 12th Avenue to FDR Drive. As you're very familiar, Central Business District tolling program began in January of 2025, and we're seeing great success so far. There are 28,000 daily passengers on the M34 and 34A SBS buses, as well as numerous express buses that use the corridor to connect to the outer boroughs. We do see slow crosstown bus speeds, especially in the center section. And the M34 and other buses really do serve as a critical crosstown transit connection, connecting to the subway, PATH, LIRR, New Jersey Transit, and Amtrak, as well as numerous local bus routes that run north-south on the avenues. 34th Street, very complex street with a lot of different demands on it. Besides bus service, we do have very heavy commercial traffic and loading needs to businesses, as well as some of the very highest pedestrian activity in the entire city, especially on the west side in the vicinity of Penn Station. And it is, unfortunately, it's a Vision Zero corridor. And so that does mean that we do see large numbers of pedestrian injuries on the corridor, and that's something we're looking to address with this project as well. So currently on 34th Street, we've got existing curbside and offset bus lanes, two different parts of our toolkit. On the bottom of your screen, you can see an example block between 9th Avenue and 8th Avenue and CB4. Generally, in many stretches, we have curbside bus lanes. Those are in effect Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And when they're not a bus lane on the weekend or after 7 p.m., those normally revert to parking or other types of loading or no standing. And then we also have offset bus lanes, called such because they're offset one lane from the parking lane. They're next to the parking lane. Those bus lanes are in effect 24/7. And generally in our bus lanes, we do find that offset lanes perform better than curbside lanes. They're much less likely to be blocked by loading. Even quick drop-offs and pickups in a curbside bus lane can still delay a bus, unfortunately. 34th Street is only about 53 feet wide, though, in the center of the island of Manhattan. And so we can't actually fit offset bus lanes in both directions. And so you'll be hearing a little bit more about MTA and some of the challenges that incurs for bus service. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to talk about bus speeds.
Thanks, Phil. My name is Rob Thompson, in bus service planning at the MTA. And so this slide shows the bus speeds on 34th Street. The darker colors are slower speeds on each block, overall ranging from 3 to 4 miles an hour up to 6 to 7. But overall pretty slow. The speeds did improve somewhat after the launch of Select Bus Service back in 2011, but the M34 and 34A is still one of our slowest bus routes. And really, the current bus lane design is not working, as Phil mentioned. Especially in those curbside lanes, they're just so easy to be blocked. Any vehicle that needs to make a drop off or pickup or delivery, that's where they go, curbside, and the bus just has to go around them. And the congestion that we see on 34th Street causes over 750 hours per day of passenger delay on just those two local routes. And by comparison, 14th Street, just a short distance away, which of course has a full-fledged busway, the bus speeds there are much faster. They're 15% faster than what we see on 34th Street. So, another basically a very close by example showing what can work a lot better. I'll pass it back to you, Phil.
Thank you, Rob. So as Rob mentioned, we have implemented a number of different bus priority features on 34th Street, starting in 2008 with curbside bus lanes. Those were upgraded when the M34 was made into a select bus service route in 2011. Also, we added 11 bus bulbs, and most of those were built through the capital construction process, which unfortunately is fairly long. And so we're just finishing up the very last one of those at 8th Avenue that was snarled in utility work for many years, but is just about to be done. We've also been on the street in 2024 and 2025. But in 2024, we did a pedestrian intercept survey, talked to 350 people, 200 took our full survey, talking about how they experienced 34th Street as pedestrians, as cyclists, as drivers, and as bus riders. And we also did visit every business between 2nd Avenue and 9th Avenue. And 112 of those businesses, the majority, opted to speak to us about their loading needs. So how do they get deliveries? What times of day do they get deliveries? Are they coming by box truck? Are they coming by minivan? Are there outgoing deliveries going out by cargo bike? A lot of really good survey data there to understand how do businesses use 34th Street, given that some businesses do have frontages only on 34th, while some have loading docks on 35th or 33rd. And then in January, we were here to talk to you as well as to CBs 5 and 6 about our existing conditions. And today we're here to talk to you about our draft proposal, which takes into account a lot of the existing conditions work that we showed you, but then your feedback as well as the surveys and some traffic data we'll talk about. As I mentioned, the DOT on-street engagement, pedestrians talked a lot about overcrowding on sidewalks, long crossing distances, especially vehicular congestion, and how that may affect the pedestrian experience. Vehicles queued back through crosswalks, having to walk around a car in the crosswalk if you have a stroller, if you're in a wheelchair. Bus riders talked about slow bus speeds, and businesses did speak about a need for curb access, especially. We did get your resolution letter, thank you, as well as from 5 and 6 for a request for 24/7 14th Street style busway, including those requests for sidewalk widening, other pedestrian safety elements, and requests to be attentive as well to delivery needs on our streets. So I'm going to jump into the proposal we have to share with you today. That is for a busway, as mentioned, a 14th Street style busway between 3rd Avenue and 9th Avenue in both directions. This is the area where we have the slowest bus speeds, the highest pedestrian volumes, and also, I think critically, also the most options for diversions for vehicles that no longer will be allowed to travel all the way through. It doesn't get quite into the mess of highway on-ramps and off-ramps you're very familiar with at the Lincoln Tunnel on the west side, as well as the Queens Midtown on the east. So we'll talk, block by block specifics, but we would maintain existing bus lanes on the rest of the corridor that exist west of 9th Avenue and east of 3rd Avenue. We'd be looking to bring new pedestrian safety improvements, including painted pedestrian spaces to help with crossing distances, hardened daylighting to help with pedestrian visibility at turn locations for private vehicles. And also there's a concrete median island proposing on 3rd Avenue. And then we'd also be looking to prioritize curb management for loading and delivery needs. So right now during the day, we do have the curbside bus lanes in many sections. And so in a busway scenario, we can use that space for other uses. And one potential use would be load and delivery needs, making sure that vehicles are not stopped in front of the bus. So I'm going to probably breeze through this. I think you're very familiar as you asked for one, but a busway is a street that prioritizes bus, truck, emergency vehicle, and accessoride through traffic. So only those kinds of vehicles can travel the whole length of the corridor without making a turn. Local access is allowed to every single block on the busway if you're in a private vehicle, but you are required to access that block from the nearest side street, and then you must leave the corridor at the next required turn, as directed by posted signage. The big benefits of a busway: it makes bus service faster, more reliable and dependable. And what we found, especially on 14th Street, is it actually does allow for very good access for loading, be that for passenger car loading, for higher vehicle loading, as well as business loading as well, because you just don't see that double parking. It's just not as common. And so just some more facts about busways and why we think they're the best choice here. Another major function is that it helps eliminate cut-through traffic. And so on any given roadway, there's often traffic that is taking that because that's the easiest route, that's the fastest route that Waze told them, but they may not always be where we want that traffic to be. And so in this proposal, 34th Street would no longer be a crosstown cut-through route for private vehicle traffic. And then another big benefit, and I'll talk about that with 14th Street a little bit, is it really helps to enhance the pedestrian experience. There are just far fewer conflicts with traffic. So on 14th Street, that busway was launched as a pilot in October 2019 with the launch of M14AD Select Bus Service, and that was made permanent a year later. We found the bus speeds increased up to 24%, and encouragingly, crashes along the corridor decreased by 42%. And while it's not here on the slide, we did find that on other streets in north and south, where some of the traffic did divert, we did not see that crash rates increased. So crash rates overall within the neighborhood decreased. We did find on 15th, 16th Streets, 13th, 12th, travel speeds around the busway had minimal changes. In some cases, it would take an extra 20 to 30 seconds for a vehicle to travel the entire corridor east to west on those side streets. We did not see debilitating gridlock or anything of that like. And then we did do a lot of post-implementation surveys, and we found that pedestrians and bus riders especially really appreciated the more frequent bus service, the faster service, and that people felt a lot safer crossing the street because there were fewer cars on the street. I don't recall if you folk, which board had told us, but I mean, one thing we keep hearing over and over on 14th Street is it's quiet. And people just can't imagine that a city street, a major street like that might be quiet. And we really do. I think it speaks to being a much more pleasant place to be if you're a pedestrian. So now I'm going to walk you through the detailed plan. Obviously, your district ends in 8th Avenue, but given that your folks use all of 34th Street east to west, I think we'll try to get through all the blocks fairly quickly, but happy to come back and talk various detailed specifics at the end of the presentation. So going eastbound, west to east at 9th Avenue, that's the beginning of the busway, what we call the gateway. And so at 9th Avenue in the eastbound direction, if you're a private vehicle, if you're not a bus, a truck, accessoride, or an emergency vehicle, you are required to make a right turn onto 9th Avenue. You'll see that we've added a right turn bay to facilitate that turn. We've also added some daylighting as well to improve the visibility there. This would be hardened. We'd probably add granite blocks or something of that like to make sure that it wasn't parked in. But eastbound vehicles would make the right turn.
I'm confused, I'm sorry. We are looking at 9th Avenue going south here.
This is eastbound, so 34th Street is left to right, and 9th Avenue is up and down. So north is
on the
up.
top.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And can you repeat for 1 second what you were saying? I was totally confused.
Of course, yes. So traffic here in the eastbound direction is the start of the busway, so you're going from left to right. And so if you're a private vehicle, you are now going to be required to make the right turn onto 9th Avenue. So because private vehicles cannot drive all the way down the street, they must make that right turn at this location. And then I will say, as you may be very familiar, over the years, with the large volumes of traffic, the large volumes of pedestrians in the crosswalks, DOT has implemented a number of turn restrictions, primarily left turns. For pedestrian safety, we find that left turns are often the most dangerous movement a vehicle can make. And so you're going to see throughout the corridor, a lot of left turns are already banned. You can't make those turns today. We plan to maintain all of those turn restrictions, both for pedestrian safety reasons, but also because that does help the bus go faster. The bus does not get stuck behind a private vehicle that is trying to make a left turn. So here in the westbound direction, today vehicles must go east to west, westbound through the intersection. They must go straight. We would maintain that. They would still have to do that in the future.
Except the post office block with the trucks.
Correct. Yeah, except for those vehicles. Yeah. Well, actually, all vehicles, buses, trucks, and cars still have to go through at this in westbound.
No,
direction.
I'm saying the turn limitation, the truck of the post office are excluded from that. They are all the cops waive them through.
Well, until 1970, they had right-of-way ambulances.
But that's,
that.
let me,
So
so just so you know, there are some exceptions.
There are, yes. Yeah, we do allow. Sorry, yes, this is I guess general, but you're right. There are certain exceptions for trucks and buses that we do make to our left turns.
Okay.
Yeah. And so for vehicles that are accessing that first block of the busway, that 9th Avenue to 8th Avenue bus block, they would be required to make a left turn to access that block. So moving to the end of the block at 8th Avenue.
On 9th Avenue, the people which are on 9th Avenue would not be able to turn on the block or not?
They would be allowed to.
From 9 to the going east on 34.
Correct. They can make that turn. So
They could make that turn?
They can, yes, it is allowed.
But in the future.
That's correct. Yes, in the future they're allowed to make that turn.
Where are they going? It's all bus lanes.
So It's I guess maybe it's almost a little bit in the weeds. It is slightly confusing. The way we've done it on all of our busways is we do paint this red here, even if we allow the southbound left turn. And that's because vehicles that are queued here that are looking across the intersection, they see that red, we don't want them to go. Whereas the assumption has been vehicles in a left turn lane, they're not going to necessarily, the red will not be quite as visible. And so that's the way we do it on 14th Street as well.
I think we're confused because we understood the busway starting at 9th Avenue. So it seems to be between 9th and
No,
8th.
between 9 and 10, there is no busway.
Right, between 9 and 10.
Now
is the
we are-
busway, but now we're between 9 and 8.
There
And
is a busway.
There is a busway, but it seems like cars can still go on, and that's what we're confused.
So yeah, correct. So the busway doesn't allow you to ever go, if you're a private driver driving from Javits at 34th to Langone on the east side, you cannot drive a private car all the way eastbound through. You're going to hit a sign that says busway, you must make a right turn, and that sign will be right here.
Yeah.
But if you say you live on this block from 9th to 8th, you're going to the movies at the AMC, and you're taking a taxi, that taxi can make a southbound left, drop you off at the AMC, and then as we get to the next intersection, the taxi will have to follow the rules of the road. And
I think
so
we are, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. it's all right. We part of our education for these busways is we actually do put together sort of a pamphlet that shows you turn by turn on every single block, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And I think these days a much bigger part of it is that we work very closely with Uber, Lyft, Waze, Google Maps to make sure that their softwares understand the turn restrictions, so that for people that are following a GPS device, which is these days almost always many taxi and for hire vehicle drivers, so they can just follow their directions and they'll get where they're going. And we did do a lot of work on 14th Street with that and Accessorize as well. Because the idea is that you do have full local access to every single block. You just don't have through access. And so we are asking, if you are driving to the AMC for whatever reason between 8th and 9th on 34th, we may be asking you to take a slightly longer route, is what we're asking you to do.
We got it, thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. And so at 8th Avenue, we do have an existing left turn ban in the eastbound direction. And so those local access vehicles that did turn on from 9th, we do require them to go straight, because we do not want them going through that high volume pedestrian crosswalk on the north side. So they get a straight, but in the westbound direction, all vehicles must make a right turn. All private vehicles must make a right turn. And so you'll see there's a right turn bay here. Only the trucks and the buses, the emergency vehicles, the accessorides may go through.
But where's the bus lane going east?
So in this case, because there's general traffic and we don't want them to make a left turn, we've not painted it red. Because by the time you get onto this block, if you're local traffic, you are allowed there. And we're gonna force you off the corridor at 5th Avenue, I believe it is where you're gonna have to get off the corridor. We're not gonna let you.
What about east of 8th? I don't see anything painted red to go east.
That's correct, because we don't want eastbound traffic to go left. So we're not painting it red. You know, if you're driving eastbound, you don't see red, the signage doesn't tell you can turn. We want you to keep going straight if you're a private vehicle.
They don't get off, and they don't get off until 5th.
I believe it's 5th, but we'll get there. It is a long stretch.
Yeah, let's go
to 7th.
Yeah.
We would be looking to add an expanded pedestrian space on the southwest corner as well. We have the space for it. It would complement the super sidewalk, the expanded sidewalks on the north side that run north up 8th Avenue. And for local access to the 8th Avenue to 9th Avenue block, as well as blocks to the east. Northbound cars on 8th Avenue, they can make a left turn, they can make a right turn onto the busway for that local access. At 7th Avenue, we've now left CB4, but I'm sure you're very familiar with the intersection of 7th Avenue and 34th Street. Some of the very highest pedestrian volumes in the city. All the turns are currently banned right now for pedestrian reasons, safety reasons. You just can't fit turning vehicles across those crosswalks safely. We would not be changing that here. So all traffic on 34th Street, it's still going eastbound and westbound. They're required to go through.
Still no red band.
Not yet.
Correct, because at this point, no one is required to enter or not enter an area. We don't want, the worry with red paint is we don't want to, private vehicles, basically, they are allowed in this area.
But how do people, I mean, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I guess we are confused on how do people know how do we know whether people are just crossing through or if they live on the block? And how will they know what they're allowed to do? Yeah,
so it's a mixture of the red paint as they approach locations they're not allowed to go, and then signage. And so if you've traveled on 14th Street, you will generally, as you enter a block that requires a turn, you're going to see a sign that says all vehicles must make next right turn, except bus, trucks, the various ones. And then when you get to the block, you see another sign that says all vehicles must make right turn. And depending on the intersection, we may also use a do not enter sign on the far side of the intersection that says do not enter except buses, trucks, and those other types of vehicles.
Are there no
mostly
turns
signage.
till 7?
Wait,
Oh, sorry, you might as well do
Yeah.
that. Sorry, go ahead. I don't agree.
For clarification, the no turn is still 7 to 7, right? So during the overnight hours, you can still make that turn, or just 24 hours now?
Sorry, what was that?
Are these no turns 7 to 7? I think like they are right now. It's like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And during the overnight, I think you can make this turn. Is this gonna be 24 hours now?
They would likely be for the hours of the busway.
wait a minute, so the busway is not 24 hours?
So we've not yet settled on that, on the hours yet. For example, the busway on 14th Street is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
All right, let's start
Keep
with the
going.
question.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
I mean, how much more do you have? Are you stopping there? Because I don't think we need to keep.
Let's see what happens at 5th.
Yeah,
Looking through quickly, what I think, the next few slides.
sure. It's variations on a theme.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we're out of the board and you would not like to belabor it, I know you have an agenda. We can flip through. I will mention we're adding some additional pedestrian space at this location on the southeast corner at 6. Similar story. There's turn restrictions. At 5th Avenue, the eastbound local traffic does make the right turn onto 5th. There's existing turn restrictions left in the westbound left direction, and we'd be adding some pedestrian space on the southwest corner. At Madison, westbound vehicles must turn right off the corridor, the local access vehicles. We would be adding some daylighting on the southwest corner. At Park, which is north-south, we do require local access vehicles to get off the corridor in both directions, but vehicles accessing the corridor can access in both directions as well, north and south. Lexington, again, for local access, we require an eastbound right. There's an existing westbound left turn restriction. We'd be adding some daylighting on the southwest and northeast corners. And then the 3rd Avenue westbound gateway is like the 9th Avenue gateway, but in reverse. And so westbound traffic is required to make a westbound, private traffic must make a westbound right. And we'd be looking to do a median island in concrete on the west leg at this location.
Okay.
And then there are currently existing mid-block crossings, 9th to 8th, 8th to 7th, 7th to 6th. we'd be looking to add some painted pedestrian spaces to shorten that crossing, provide a little daylighting, provide some more visibility for pedestrians. And so you have been talking a little bit about how do we know who's local, who's not, who's allowed. Busways are enforced by on-bus ACE cameras, as well as fixed location cameras. So those enforce illegal parking at bus stops, double parking, and violation of required turns. So if you do not make a required turn, you may receive a ticket because of that. And that's how it's enforced, because the sign says must make right turn. And if you do not do that, you're in violation. We have that evidence there. We do have the ACE on-bus cameras on 34th Street right now since 2020. And we found on the busways especially that the camera enforcement is very successful at changing driver behavior. We find that after launch, the number of violations decreases pretty rapidly over time as drivers understand the rules. And we find that most drivers, they get one ticket and they fly straight. 80% of violators don't get a second ticket. And all those tickets are reviewed by people at DOT just to make sure that we're complying with the rules. There's no sort of automated ticketing in that sense. It is all human reviewed. For fairness, we do issue warnings also for the first 60 days on any new regulation that we're enforcing. And we would work closely with NYPD on any busway launch. I'll very quickly touch on the traffic analysis that we're doing. We're doing what's called the dynamic traffic analysis. So instead of looking just at traffic conditions on 34th Street at an intersection at a traffic light, we're looking at much of the Midtown core from 14th Street to 66th Street. We're using a type of modeling that allows us to understand, given different scenarios, different inputs, different turn restrictions, where traffic would flow, where it would redistribute once that 34th Street is not a through route for private traffic. So we've done a lot of data collection. We're developing the existing conditions model right now. It requires a lot of calibration to put out good data. And we're using that really to understand how to make this work the best it can. The 14th Street example, I think, showed us very conclusively. And then the other 5 busways we've done that really traffic generally disperses itself pretty evenly and it doesn't add to congestion when we do these types of projects. So we really do see this model as a way to make sure that we get it right. And so we're looking to provide the results of that traffic analysis once it's done, and that will inform the final proposal.
Okay.
Just
keep going, but yeah. We're gonna have to go on with questions as soon as possible.
Yep. And then just very briefly, some of the work that underpins that is understanding where are drivers on 34th Street going today who are no longer able to go all the way through. We find about 29% are traveling immediately north or south or on 34th Street itself. That's where they want to go. That's why they're driving on 34th Street. We find that about 24% of the trips, they're heading somewhere else in Manhattan, outside of the local area. And we do find that a full 47% or so of trips are headed somewhere else out of the borough or out of the city entirely. So what we might call cut through traffic.
Was that before congestion pricing?
I would have to check if we have data before and after. I'm not certain on this slide.
Okay.
Yep. So in summary, we're looking to make bus service faster, more reliable. We're looking to increase safety, and we're looking to ensure access to businesses for loading needs. We're proposing a 14th Street style busway between 3rd Ave and 9th Avenue. And we're currently working to finalize our traffic analysis, further develop the design, and synthesize what we hear from you and other stakeholders. And so we're meeting with you right now. We're meeting with other community boards in the area as well. I definitely appreciate any feedback you have for us. Continuing to spend a lot of time on 34th Street, which in the springtime is always delightful. We don't mind that at all. This summer, we'll be continuing the traffic analysis and refining the proposal based on that traffic, as well as your community feedback. And we're looking to share a refined plan during the summer with implementation in summer or fall of this year. And so thank you so much for bearing with me. I know it was a lot.
We We really appreciate it. No, it was a lot, and it was important that we hear it all, and I appreciate you picking it up at the end. I know there are a lot of questions in the room. I usually defer to others first, but I am just dying for my own clarification, sorry, and I promise I'll turn it over to others. In your proposal, it would not be against the rules for a driver to go down 9th Avenue and then use the busway to go all the way to Fifth and then continue south on Fifth.
That's
Is that
correct.
accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, so that seems problematic to me, but I'm gonna open up to other questions. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much. I'm very excited for this plan. But I have questions because I live on 10th Avenue. I don't drive, but I have neighbors that do drive, especially to Long Island. They normally would take 10th Avenue to go to the Midtown Tunnel. How would they do that? And my second question is, are you gonna continue with the same evacuation plan? Because 34th Street is an evacuation route also, so how will that affect this?
So to the Queens Midtown Tunnel, there's a variety of different routes. We expect drivers to find a way.
Yeah, but what is that way? I mean, that's kind of like, but to go, I mean, are they zigzag, is there gonna be a straight route? I mean, we need to have that. I mean, otherwise, we're gonna get blowback as a community board and the electeds are gonna blow back. We're gonna worry about the signs?
I think at 10th Avenue, it would, I believe, be go north and then up to, is it 38th, I believe? Would probably be the fastest route.
Yeah, I think that ultimately you'll come back to us with the results of your traffic study, and then we will talk about
Yes.
what actually ends up happening. So what will.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be hearing the complaints.
No, we're gonna see the traffic study. Let's see.
And also about the evacuation route, are you gonna continue with the same evacuation route, or do you now have you modified the evacuation plans? Because 34th Street is an evacuation by the state,
I don't know what that means.
if there's an emergency.
Forget about signs. I'm jumping into the.
Well, the emergency, we're all screwed.
Right, no one's getting out of this town.
We
We're all just going for whatever is available.
we do work closely with NYPD, FDNY, and a variety of other city agencies, including OEM. And so I think that's a good flag, and we'll make sure to include that in our conversations. Thank you.
Alan, go.
Thank you very much. Can you go back to 9th Avenue, please?
I like 38th Street, that's a good idea.
Jesus. I'll take care of that.
So on 9th Avenue, we're making a right turn. Now, generally speaking, as it exists now, most right turn, cars are using 2 lanes to make that right turn. So you have the right hand and then the next lane, and they swing around it.
No, they use 2 lanes to make the left turn.
No, make the right turn
He's saying from here to here.
onto 9th.
Oh, from,
Yeah.
right.
So would it be a good idea? Because if you only have 1 lane coming out of 10th Avenue and from the highway, you're gonna get a lot of backup on that 1 lane. If all they can do is make a right turn on that right-hand lane. So we're painting on or making some sort of designation that you can make turn from 2 lanes. Would that help traffic? Go into that.
I will not turn it.
So our hope is that, the right turn bay here is to allow vehicles to get from 34th Street eastbound to 9th Avenue. But we are expecting, and the traffic analysis will be useful in this, that volume is going to be much, much, much lower than it is today. So, we found on 14th Street, we found on our other busways that, for example, if there were 100 vehicles that went through, it doesn't become 100 vehicles that now make a right.
I
And
think
we
you were
find-
talking about the 34th Street going eastbound
Right.
and turning south on 9th Avenue. That was the question.
Correct, but I'm saying that, I think you were saying that maybe there should be 2 right turn lanes. Is that what you're saying? To
Yes.
accommodate the traffic volume? And I'm saying we do expect that those volumes will be much lower in the future. Because right now, people who are driving eastbound through from 34th Street across 9th Avenue, some of them are going to 1st Avenue, some are going to 2nd Avenue, some are going to 3rd Avenue. we expect those vehicles are now going to be taking an entirely different route.
Okay, so you're gonna have signage on the highway telling people they can't go through 34th Street, if they have to find another way.
You
to
mean
get
on
through.
Lincoln Tunnel?
Yeah, off the highway. wherever they-
Lincoln Tunnel?
Yeah, by Javits Center coming off the highway.
Well, but Javits Center, they have a different problem because they don't have a busway there.
Okay.
So they are not going to be signed at the
On our
beginning.
on our busways, we have done signage that is sometimes in advance of the busway, because we don't want this to be a surprise, you know. We don't, and so we would be updating our signage, you know, as you're approaching from the West Side Highway, as you're approaching from the FDR, we'd be adjusting that signage, you know, to make sure that you're not getting yourself onto 34th Street thinking that you can drive to First Avenue. Just as is the case with many of the streets between 34th and 42nd for the Lincoln. We also will be meeting with the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, as well as MTA Bridge and Tunnels to talk about how this interacts with their facilities. And I think you had mentioned there, as you get off the Lincoln Tunnel, as you get off the Queens Midtown, there is a lot of very complicated signage about where to go, depending on where your final destination is. And so we'd be talking about that as well.
I guess the point is,
Yeah.
right, like unlike 14th Street, there are these giant arteries that drop off right here. And people will leave, you know, it's like, it's not, people have less,
It's midtown,
yeah.
right?
Just, got it, sorry. Oh, wait,
Who is
Thompson.
Yes.
I was looking at Google Maps for 14th Street just to kind of compare in my mind. And also on 34th Street now. So 34th Street now has red all the way across, right? And what you're proposing is to take away the red. And to me, as a visual like sign, that's gonna be a sign to folks like, oh, like it's open season now. And so on at least 14th Street, I think it is local deliveries and stuff. And so there's like red at the intersections that has additional signage, but like makes it clear this is really a busway. And so in some ways it felt like the proposal was like a regression from that, or might be confusing to folks. Based on a lot of the red being taken away, and it almost feels like regression, but I obviously defer to you all as the experts here.
No, we can definitely take that back. You know, it's been an evolution as we've done more of these. And so yeah, definitely appreciate the comment. This is not set in stone yet.
Who else?
Anyone else from the committee? We have questions from the public. We got one in the room and two online. All right, in the room, go ahead. I'm gonna introduce yourself and then speak loud enough so that this microphone can hear you.
Great, thanks. Hi, I'm Henry. I live in Hell's Kitchen. I was just wondering, so, right, we're forcing anyone who enters the busway at 9, they have to go currently to 5th, right? So you can't turn off at any point. What was the issue with 7th Avenue that made it that we wouldn't want to force them off there?
This is the number of pedestrians, I think, but got it.
Busy.
It was just the number of pedestrians that we wouldn't want to force the turn. Okay.
Yeah.
And significantly more than a 5th.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's on the corner of Penn Station. Something like 30 or 40,000 a day, I think. It's a very large number. The nice thing about our busways especially is most of the regulation is signage, and so it is flexible. And so on 14th Street, we made some changes after the case. On Jamaica Avenue, we've made some changes. So it is the sort of thing where we can do the project, and then if we find that the volumes for passenger cars are so incredibly low, it might be safe. It's something we could consider. But as we sort of start on this draft proposal, we really did not want to change the existing left turn bans, especially.
Well, and just for this presentation, with the turn arrows in the corners, it's at least for me, it's very hard to tell which way those turns are not allowed. Just because they're in the corner, I can tell which direction it's referring to from where you're approaching. So I'm just trying to like get a sense of, right, like we have turns that are kosher, we have turns that are required and turns that are allowed, but you're gonna have to turn off or follow the busway rules. So I'm just trying to get better visual understanding of that, or.
I gotta- Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate that note. I do see how that can be a little, I think for the next draft of this, we'll see,
Appreciate it, thanks.
show that a little better.
Miriam, and then, I have Marissa
You
online.
want to finish the committee?
We did,
No, what about?
Oh, sorry, I said we were done, sorry, I didn't realize you had questions still.
Oh, yeah.
But, sorry, I just said, Miriam, go ahead, and then we'll, sorry. Go ahead, Miriam.
Me now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Buses are a new phenomenon to me. I never took them because they were too slow. And it made me crazy. And I was a big walker I'm thinking about things that I never did before. And one of them is the bus stops, and whether when you do the project like this, you look at each bus stop and enhance the ones that don't have seats and don't have shelters. And I know, before you answer, I just want to also say that I heard the presentation the other night, and I did ask that question. I was told that you look at them, but I want to hear that more clearly. And since 14th Street is the model for these other projects along Madison 34th, I walked a bit on 14th Street yesterday, and not that far. It was a little too much for me, but there were bus stops that had no seats and no shelter. And I would have thought if this was part of the project, all of 14th Street would have had that. So getting back to 34th, how do you work with checking out that all the bus stops can be enhanced if they don't have seats or shelters from the weather?
Miriam, Phil, I can take this one. Miriam, it's Colleen from the Manhattan Borough Commissioner's Office at DOT. We have an office of coordinated street furniture, and we work very closely with them when we get requests for bus shelters and for seatings. There are some established criteria that do not allow us to install bus shelters and seatings, and it could be that the sidewalk might be narrowed, or it's vaulted, or there might be a manhole cover in the area. My colleague Rachel, who presented to CB5 on Monday, did mention that we will look at the corridor to determine whether it's feasible to install shelters or any type of seating, along the route. So we will keep you posted. We will also let the community boards know of any plans to install shelters and seatings. So definitely we'll look at that, okay?
Well, my question is this done automatically, and then if it isn't feasible, then it's not done? Or do people have to request that? And people always don't, because it's not on the radar and they don't know that they can request.
We always encourage folks to request these through 311. They can also request it through their local community boards or elected officials, or even contact my office directly to request it. I will make sure that I give you my email address, and if there's any location that you see that you think it's feasible to have a bus shelter or seating, please feel free to email me and send me that.
Colin, you do have a presentation on that later, and we will be talking about that, but I think Miriam's question is just simply, will they be looking at each bus stop as part of this project automatically? I think that's the question on the table.
And yes,
that's what I'm asking, because I don't think people know that they can make those requests. It's not on the radar. They don't think about that.
So if we don't have an answer, that's okay, but let's just.
We will look at, go ahead, Phil, but we will look at it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I will say yes, on all of our bus priority projects, we do take a look, especially for seating elements, benches and leaning bars. Those we have a very large stock of. For shelters, generally shelter planning, you can request one, but it is on a much more citywide level because there is a citywide contract. And so there's some prioritization that goes into it. The wonderful thing about 34th Street as part of M34 SBS is actually we built some of the more high quality bus stops that we have in the city already. 14th Street has those temporary bus borders in a lot of places, those recycled plastic bus borders. Here we actually have 11 concrete ones, which are very high quality and have shelters. Some of them have shelters.
Thank you very much. I know Marissa was moved over already. Do we mind just hearing from Marissa first, and then we'll come back to the committee with additional questions? Marissa?
Oh, hi. It's a very quick question. I'm always fascinated with the fact that many workers, city workers, most of them now are working 2 days remotely, which is reduction in traffic. And now we have congestion pricings. Have any of these studies for this project or a lot of the projects in the city with traffic been done after congestion pricing has gone into effect? Or mostly how many times the amount of people that are working remotely now? It seems like nobody's taking this into consideration. It's a huge difference.
Okay.
So yeah, in terms of in this project, the traffic analysis began before congestion pricing, but has been updated since. And so we are running various scenarios that do look at traffic volumes that are lower than when the work started, basically in 2024. And that is the nice thing about this type of traffic modeling, is it looks at different scenarios. So yes, we are.
Well, that's very
taking that into
encouraging
account.
because there's a lot of things people are spouting with certain types of traffic initiatives, transportation alternatives, but they've not taken into consideration that many workers, not just in the public, but in the private sector, are allowing and having full-time people working remotely. I'm just curious what that's done to our traffic. I think it's lowered it considerably, and I was not in favor of congestion pricing, but I love it. It's made my day easier in every respect. And
You are on video.
I know.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the question. All right, returning to questions of the committee, and then we'll wrap this up.
So yes, what is the criteria by which you decided to stop at 9th Avenue instead of going all the way, at least to 10, or maybe all the way to the Javits Center?
Yeah, so that was mostly about where the ridership for the bus is highest, where the bus is slowest, and then I think especially in terms of the traffic patterns with the Lincoln Tunnel on the west side there. So once you get to 10th Avenue, I know the board has been very involved in the Dyer Avenue discussions, but once you get over to 10th Avenue, you've missed that ramp, and then there's the ramps from 9th Avenue, and so we found that starting at 9th is probably the best for the traffic flow.
Yeah, I think that's kind of taking the easy way out, because these are really issues that need to be addressed. And just by starting a little further down, not only you are not addressing those issues, but those issues have an impact on the next block, which is very slow. I have been myself standing in the middle of the red lane, waving at cars so that they go back in their cars channel, because we have cops at the intersection which are waving all the cars on the red paint. So we need to start earlier so we prevent the problem. And the second thing is, we had that discussion earlier, if you have cars coming from Dyer Avenue and turning onto 34 going east, the volume is way too much for that little, catch basin in a sense, this little lake. So without completely changing the signal timing at Dyer Avenue and 9, this is just not going to work. The cars are blocking the whole intersection, and they want to go straight, and then they turn, and when they turn, nothing works, because if they just so it's really I think a missed opportunity, and I think we want to insist on you starting at 10th Avenue. And then there is a whole issue of red paint, and I agree with what was said before, which is it's going to be massively confusing. You know, there is wet paint, there is no paint, there is wet paint, there is no paint. I mean, we are not getting a busway, we are getting the dotted line busway. And that's totally going to confuse everybody. And then the issue of turning at 9, and you can go all the way to 5.
Yeah.
Forget it.
People will figure that out very quickly.
Forget it. So what you need is to say, look, this is the standard of the busway, and you turn at the corner. And you change the sign so people turn at the corner, because first of all, the volume on one block is only going to be the volume that needed to be local to that block, right? So turning to 7th Avenue and turning to 5th, etc., it should all be the same. It should be one system with a standard set of expectations.
Consistency.
Yeah, consistency and a set of expectation. I mean, you know, who is going to know? So you have NYPD and they have somebody turning or going through. I mean, what do they know? Who knows what's right and wrong? I think we need a system which is like 14th Street, which is consistent across the board and which definitely start at 10 to minimize impact on the rest.
I will just mention that 14th Street does have, in some cases, 2 and 3 block sections because of the left turn bans.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's just less traffic being dropped off.
There's so much less traffic and so much less.
So we certainly are going to request, and we're going to be writing a letter to you, but we'll certainly be requesting that you seriously consider and include that in your traffic analysis.
Right.
There's no reason not to study that option as well, and I think you might find that it actually works better, yeah. Anybody else with questions, because then we gotta do a brief discussion about questions, anybody else? Once, twice, all right, so we're gonna be writing a letter. Establishing our general support for this proposal, idea, especially when congestion pricing and traffic being reduced already as it is, seems like a great opportunity. We do have a number of concerns and comments, including about the red paint, 10th Avenue, going from 9th to 5th, keeping it consistent, enhancing the bus stops, just making sure there's sufficient signage, so people know that they can't use 34th as cut through. And questions about just making sure that people can figure out how to get to the Midtown Tunnel without 34th, without going on 34th. Are there any other
Double right turn lanes.
double right turn lanes? Thank you very much.
Well, that's okay, that's another option for that section, right?
But
We
we'll put it in to consider.
Yes.
Anything else? All right, is there a motion? Motion. Seconds?
Second.
All those in favor?
Okay, now.
Anyone from those? Did.
You can do it.
You can vote. All right, great. Philip, Colleen, everyone else who is online.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We are very excited by this and we're excited about all the work that you're putting into it. So really, thank you. We appreciate it.
We want more.
We want more. Yeah, great. 23.
And we're glad to see you once more, and your feedback is invaluable, so thank you so much.
Great, thank you. We are moving right ahead to an application for a bus permit. I'm familiar with these. Bus permit application for Metro West Car Services, 36th Street between 11th Avenue and Hudson on the south side. If you are here from Metro West, I see a couple. Please unmute yourself, put yourself on video, and go ahead.
Shannon, can you bring them over?
I think they're here.
Oh, they are there?
Yeah, it's Chad and some others.
And then Ryan, are you guys putting yourself on video?
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you. Are you not able to go on video?
I'm trying, but unfortunately I have a pretty old computer, so it's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
All right, no worries. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Very good. Yeah, well, first of all, thank you guys for having us today. I'm very new to this experience, first time doing a hearing, so please help me out if I'm caught somewhere. My first time having to do this, so I'm not really sure what to expect. However, my name is Chad Wilson. I'm the VP of Operations at Metro West Car Service. Our location's actually in Massachusetts. I'm not too familiar with New York in general, but what we do is we work with a partner called Arbus, who does have an office in New York. And we run a shuttle program. And basically that shuttle program runs from Boston, it goes into New York, and then final destinations in Pennsylvania. So the reason why we're applying for this permit is because we're going to be passing through New York, and we will be making a stop to drop off passengers. It'll be a 30-minute stop, pick up passengers, and move on. There is no layover time, it's not like that. It's just a continuous shuttle. A little bit more about our business. We are a small business. We are women-owned. The owner is Riham Ramali, and she's also, I guess we would consider minority-owned as well. She's Arab American. And we're a small company, again, out of Massachusetts, family-owned business, not a large fleet at all. And again, we're not trying to be a nuisance to everybody. We're just, again, looking to kind of pass through, not to cause any major traffic jams, nothing like that. Just looking to make a stop for about 30 minutes and then move on. And it's usually, I think the schedule's for the morning time, if I'm not mistaken. Ryan will be able to tell you a little bit more about the location. And unfortunately, that's what I have. I don't know. The last presenter had a very big presentation. Unfortunately, we're not that sophisticated, but
short is great for us too. Don't worry.
Short
Ryan,
and sweet.
you have more to add?
Ryan, if you want to add anything.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. This is Ryan. So the reason we are here in this meeting is, again, as Chad mentioned, we are planning to obtain the permit. This is on East 36th Street. That's on a block with a few other businesses and our neighbors. That building is in the front of a ventilation tower. That's an empty lot with a lot of train tracks. So I assume it's unlikely we'll have a residential development over there. Also, to add up, this is formerly a bus stop used by Bolt Bus. And they ran frequent departures like every 30 to 60 minutes until they closed back in COVID. So now we're planning to, use that location for our buses. And as Chad mentioned previously, we're just making a 30-minute just 30-minute break. And then we'll be dropping off people, and then we'll be proceeding to Pennsylvania. Also, we have some hot dog carts already set up for business over there. So that place can also help our passengers to grab some quick bites, which they can have. And then if they are feeling hungry, so they can just enjoy the rest of their journey. Other than that, I don't have anything additional from my side.
Okay, I think we're gonna have some questions for you. Appreciate it.
So why not be on 11th Avenue itself? Instead of being on 36th Street?
Okay, very good question. So basically, when we are working with our bus, they wanted us to get this stop. I assume this is a very generic stop which most of the passengers use for travel. So that's the only thing I can answer you.
I would say, because it's a stopover for a lot of people. There is something about the fact that they'll be stopping near a public restroom, which is maybe desirable.
What's that?
What's that?
They have a restaurant on board?
They do have, I'm sure you're right, they do have a restaurant on board.
No,
I don't know, do you guys have a
I think
restaurant
the
on board?
restroom of the park is not designed for having, the restroom of the bus.
Alright, well, yeah, do you have?
And then the second thing I'm concerned about is that when they start to be on 36th Street, then you start to have, the vendors. And the vendors come to the corner, and it's really, so 11th Avenue would be a better place to drop off people. If the only thing they want to do is drop off people, why not do?
Eventually they wanna get to that.
It's drop off and pickup.
Is it pickup?
It's pickup also, right? You guys have 2 pickups and 2 drop offs per day?
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, correct.
No.
Also, just to add one thing, other bus stops for intercity bus services are around the right corner, 11th Avenue, which you have just mentioned. We're planning to offer connecting tickets to those routes so passengers can transfer between these buses easily.
Yeah, but that's not my question. What I would like to see you do is go to be on 11th Avenue, where those other companies are, and not on 36th Street.
Yeah, that's something we could definitely look into with our planning team, with our partners. Again, this is the route that they proposed to do. So again, we kind of lead with them since they're in New York as being the better destination. Unfortunately, we relied on them to, as I said, we're in Massachusetts. So we would trust in their judgment that that would be the best location. But again, we can definitely circle around that and mention that to them. That
would like to say that you are on 11th Avenue and, you know, and you propose that location to the DOT as your preferred location.
Sure.
Okay.
In his presentation, though, he said they want to stop and get snack, which is the vendors that you don't want. So it's. I have no.
Yeah, but if they're on 11th Avenue, that's not an issue.
Further out.
If they are in the park, that becomes a huge issue.
Why?
Why?
You don't
Because,
think- yeah.
no, because, well, yes, because the real estate owners are very, very upset about the vendors in the park.
Push.
Yeah, they,
Yeah.
hopefully.
But at one time, if there are too many, I mean, you know, what we got to a situation where there were many.
No, I remember we talked about it, but I mean, at this point, I think the number of vendors has scaled back, and I mean, I don't know I just don't know if they would take the same position to bid. Because they have their own vendors who maybe would benefit from this, and I just,
Yeah, I'm just sort of putting
No, I
on the
know.
table, everything, all the consideration that I've heard from
yes.
the different
Well,
ones.
I think either way, we usually always prefer avenues over
Right.
side streets,
Right.
so anything we write would still.
Yeah, because if they are on the 36th Street, then they will cross the park
Yeah,
to get to 10 and
Right.
then to go to the highway.
right.
Well, they can take Hudson Boulevard West.
We don't want them to take anything in Hudson Boulevard because we are going to close those things as shared streets,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So those Hudson Boulevard West and East are going to be mostly close to traffic and reserved from local traffic. So
And again,
it's
like I
not,
mentioned, we're definitely open to your suggestion. I mean, if you have a better proposal of where we should kind of park, and again, it is just kind of like an intermediate stop. But basically, by the time we unload one passengers, it's just enough time to basically reload the bus for passengers boarding at that point to kind of move on now to Pennsylvania. Again, it's a very short amount of time where they're going to be there for. We're not taking up a lot, and it's just in one time frame of the day, which is in the morning. Which again, I understand maybe there's a lot of traffic in the morning, but again, we're very flexible with that. We can definitely go back to our bus planning team and say, hey, they would really like us to be rather on 11th. I'm sure that's very accommodable.
Will New York be able to get tickets and let's say go to, I don't know where you go.
Yeah, where are you going in Pennsylvania? Just for the purpose of also writing a more specific letter, where in Pennsylvania?
I'm sorry?
Reading, Pennsylvania, Reading.
Yes, Reading, correct.
and you're coming from Massachusetts.
Okay.
Right. So the route starts in Boston,
Right.
goes into New York, and then final destination Reading, Pennsylvania.
Okay. So, any other questions?
And it's a public service, like a ticketing. You know, you purchase a ticket. It's open for the public.
I'm sorry, is this just one way? Not, doesn't make sense.
Are you coming back from Massachusetts to?
Yeah.
from-
Yes.
from-
Next day.
From Reading to Massachusetts, you are,
Yes.
Oh, the next time, okay.
so that's round trip.
Round trip.
Okay.
Okay, one last thing, which I'll just say, since you guys are new to us, which is, we always make sure that, you commit, on record and, stipulations that your bus drivers will not idle, that they will, and you'll keep their sidewalks orderly, if there's queuing, if there's any sort of boarding, on board, that you will have, maintain order on the sidewalk and that your buses will be off during the 30 minutes that you're sitting there.
Absolutely, yeah. Any rules, regulations you guys have for us, will absolutely follow. We follow all regulation, FMCSA, DOT. Any regulations you guys have, we absolutely follow it.
Okay, so the letter that we're going to propose is to say I mean, it's not actually in support of this location, it's in support of 11th Avenue. And that's gonna be our recommendation to DOT, so it's not gonna be in favor of this particular location. That's my understanding where we are.
Yeah.
And if that is our understanding where we are, what is
We have a
the vote?
I make the motion.
Motion, do we need somewhere specific on 11th? Do we wanna?
Oh, it's between 36 and 35.
It's 11 hours between.
Right, that's where the bolt,
Yeah.
and they're already, right.
Yeah. All right, wait, was there a second? Sorry.
Right.
Second, motion is great. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone eligible? Great, all right, so, we thank you so much, thanks for the presentation. We will send a letter to the DOT, you guys will be CC'd, with our recommendation. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Can I
very much,
ask a
guys.
question? Can I ask a question? It's Colleen from DOT. You'll send a letter letting us know the recommendation. And if we're fine with it, does the company need to come back to the community board?
No,
No,
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Colleen.
Yeah,
Yes,
we'll
thanks.
be in touch. Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you guys so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Great, all right, so now, next up, we have Miriam, presenting again on bus shelters. The last time she spoke to us, I think we were more focused on 23rd Street, but Miriam would like to just give a broader presentation on our district in general, and as you know, and as she knows, you know, we are kicking off a canvas that includes this issue, but and hopefully this ends up being more of a training for us on what we're looking for, what the issues are. So Miriam, take it away.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, this is chapter 2 of the presentation, December, to make, put also on the radar the need for everyone for better transportation, bus stops that have shelter from the bad weather. Nobody wants to stand 20 minutes in the snow or 95-degree heat. It's not only an accessibility issue for people with disabilities, but for everyone. And seating is most helpful often for people with disabilities, seniors, pregnant women, children. And in terms of being on the radar, 15,000 bus stops in New York City, only 20% have shelters. That means 80% don't. 17% have seats. So that's 83% don't. It's not on the radar, and people don't know also that they can request this independently, which is one of the things that I felt was very important to share. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. An update of the on the letter that CB4 sent to the DOT. I've been in touch with Edmund Asiedu in terms of the request. I know Jesse walked 23rd Street, thank you. And what I counted were 6 bus stops that could use enhancement. That's 6 out of 14 actually of the whole all of 23rd. I have a bus map and I counted. That's only about 40%. So it's not on the radar for people who might be standing by the same bus every day, cursing because they're caught in the rain again and again and again, and they don't know that they also can do this independently. And that's part of what I'm trying to accomplish with this. So it's now on the list for the DOT to investigate in terms of the bus stops that Jesse noted, and also Edmund Asiedu from the DOT, who's been the contact for me, said that he's called Sellis Manor and spoke to tenants, and they were very excited, very enthusiastic. Yes, 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 they would like a shelter. There is a bench there, and it's going to be prioritized when they finally get going. So I wanted to share that with you. Jesse will talk later about how CB4 can enhance the number of bus stops that are improved, and that might be a role model for other community districts, because it's not on the radar, not on the people aren't thinking about it. And this is partly, what I'm trying to do. To get back now to the screen share, and thank you, Janine. The first photo was just one uptown a few years ago. I wasn't really thinking about bus stops, but I couldn't not notice this young man who was presumably pretty limber, sitting on the sidewalk waiting for the bus, and an older woman standing looking in the direction of the bus. And I thought, there must be a better way to travel. The next one is on somewhere along West 23rd Street. There's a seat, not with back support, which is certainly important for many people with spinal disabilities. Me, in particular, if there's just a bench there, I don't use it because within a few minutes I'll have back pain. So some of my advocacy is really for the community, and if there's no seat with a back support, it's no help for me anyway. The next one, the third one, is further down on 23rd, and right on the building on the right is the senior center, which I had actually gone into when I was looking for endorsements for the elevator on 23rd Street. And here are people standing, waiting, no seat, no shelter. The last one is near a hydrant. I think that a shelter, you can request placement of a shelter. There are guidelines that I think it has to be 10 feet from a hydrant. So you can request what you need, and then the DOT will examine, as Colleen said, whether it's feasible. Okay, Janine, can we go to the next page? And this is one of the points I want to make, and think of the statistics that I quoted about the percentages of seats and shelters in the city. People don't know that they can make their own requests independently and do not need an intermediary. Here, one option to ask for benches and shelters is to email or call Edmund Asiedu, who's DOT. He's the accessibility coordinator. And he asked me if it's all right if he shares that he prefers emails and not calls, because he can get all the details correctly. And I said, yes, it's okay. So the next part I want to go over quickly, if Janine can help me, is to open up the seat requests, because I want to show that very quickly and what the choices are. Okay. Scroll down. Keep going. Okay, keep going. Here's obviously a comfortable seat for me with a bench, with a back support. Keep going, Janine. Below that, there are two more. Here's a common seat, which is cheaper, obviously, no back support. What the DOT has been doing is putting some of these benches in the shelters. I see that on 23rd and 8th. And I heard, and I'd be glad to hear from the DOT, from people who were present, that there's been incidences because the benches, people are using the back of the shelter for support, that some of the shelters have collapsed with the weight of this going on for a long period, and people using the backs of the shelters, which are not that stable for continued use, and the shelters have collapsed. I'm just curious, since there are people here from the DOT, if they have any reaction to that. And it just reinforces my desire to have back supports on the benches. And can anybody answer that?
Hey, Miriam, it's Colleen from DOT. So
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any incidents related to this. I would have to check with my colleagues in our coordinated street furniture to see if we got any complaints about this or any incidents within the last year or 6 months or so.
I got this from another disability activist who's a member of Disabled in Action in downstate New York, ADAPT. I don't know if it happened just once or several times, but it is something of concern. And go on to the last photo below the benches. Janine, can you just scroll down a little further? Or at least maybe I don't see it on my computer. Okay, this is the leaning bar that was referred to earlier. I have a lot of problems with that in terms of giving support for people with disabilities who need to sit. And ironically, right now they're doing a pilot project on the West 4th subway station where they've taken out some of the big wooden benches that we're all familiar with and are putting in this this bar instead of the bench. Excuse me?
Yeah, I don't think that's good. I agree with you.
I can't hear.
It was Christina agreeing. It was Christina agreeing with you. Go ahead, Miriam.
And there was an article by Barbara Russo Lenin, who's written up the a rally and the article on the bus stops, which I'm going to show next. And I saw the article, and I saw disability groups are already protesting about that. Some people that I know, and I think Jesse has also met Joe Rappaport and Justin Jones, whom I don't think you know. They're already protesting, and frankly, at the next MTA meeting next month, and I'll try to testify as often as I can, I'm going to bring that up too, that I think this is hard for people with disabilities. It's certainly not would be my choice.
So Miriam, I think this is fantastic. This is fantastic information. What we'll do is we're going to publish that to our whole community board mailing list so that you can have more people reporting that. And I think that's very helpful.
Those kinds of benches make me want to scream, because for me and for many people, I think this is useless.
Yes.
And often in many places where they're a message that they don't want people who are homeless to get too comfortable and to use those facilities. It's an old story.
Yeah, thank you for all your research.
I have one last page.
Okay.
And then I'm done. Okay.
Quick.
Oh, and also I think that Christine put the addresses on the the human board website.
We'll put them on the website and send them out. Thank you for reminding us.
And the last one is an article called "Gimme Shelter" by Barbara Russo Lenin from AM New York, and where it talks about CB4 and the letter that they wrote, and quotes a bit from me and from Jesse. So if you want to read more about people the article is Gimme Shelter, which is from Rolling Stones, if you don't know, and that's it.
Great.
Very
Thank
good.
you so much, Miriam.
Thanks so much.
Really excellent, and I hope you'll stick around and just be online to listen while we talk about, our canvassing. And
Right.
efforts.
Yeah, I am very interested in that.
Any questions from the committee? Yes, Alex.
Question for Colleen.
Question for Colleen. Colleen, just looking for you.
Oh,
Hey, what's the question?
Hi, thank you.
Go ahead.
On the locations where you can't put the standard shelter in, if you have a manhole cover or infrastructure, do you put temporary removable shelters in?
We don't install temporary removal shelters. We don't do that. No.
Why not?
Because our contract with the company JC Deco does not include installing temporary shelters. To install temporary shelters, it's costly, and then you'd have to relocate from one location to the other. So that's something that we don't do.
Well, isn't that something maybe we could try to do for people who are sitting there with rain pouring on their heads instead of being covered up by temporary, which may not have to be moved too often?
I mean, I think the community.
Working with you guys for how many years? They should be a little bit I think they should be a little accommodating. Somebody should push them a little bit on that.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, not, as I mentioned earlier, not every location is feasible to have a shelter. There could be obstructions. There could be vaults.
Right, no,
there could be.
that. But you're not gonna wrap it around a hydrant. But when you have manhole covers or vents or something like that, which you may need at some point to address, you don't want to rip out you can't rip out a standard electrified bus shelter, but you can certainly move. But we have restaurants that are now taking down their dining areas in the wintertime easily enough because they need to, and then putting it back up. I think DOT can take down a shelter
to adopt that design, you mean? Create a design which is equivalent to the open dining.
Right.
That's not a bad idea, right?
I understand what you're saying, but the dining out program is very different in terms of the criterias versus a bus shelter.
Bus shelters protect people, a dining feeds people, and someone's making money off it. So let's try to protect these individuals have to stand there on these corners and wherever else in the rain. It's great that they have benches, but let's maybe try to come up with some idea. You don't have to answer this right now, but maybe it's something you can take to whoever, the higher ups or something. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else with any questions?
Do we put what Alan
Marissa.
had in the letter, maybe?
What's that?
What Alan suggested, maybe put in a letter?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we wanna, I think I would wanna wait until we've done our canvas before we write letters.
Right.
Marissa, go ahead. No, she's good. Marissa, you're muted.
Marissa, you are muted.
Okay, I thought you muted me. I've heard this excuse from DOT so many times, we don't do that. Well, why don't we try to do something? That's, really, Ms. Chatterjee, and I think you're terrific, but seriously, we don't do that is not a great answer because it is harder and harder to get around the city. And these leaning posts are an outrage. I never saw one before. I'm so glad I came to this meeting. I think it's ridiculous and dangerous. And that the benches don't have backs is also dangerous. And I don't understand why DOT's designer can't be told to design something that would accommodate people and think outside the box. Because we don't do that, it's not a good response from a city agency, in my humble opinion.
Marissa, it's not that we don't do that. We don't install temporary bus shelters. Clarification, just so you know that.
Yes,
we can look.
Answer, Colleen. It's the same answer. We don't.
No, it's different, Marissa. It's different. We can look at the locations that have the backless benches and those other seatings to determine if we can install proper seating that do have backs. But it's the policy where I don't know, and I'm being very honest with you, I've never heard of us installing a temporary bus shelter.
Right, I never
Thank you.
heard of it's exactly the
Yeah.
point is that you have to start thinking about these things. And the final thing I have to say that is a little outrageous is that there is a world where 80% of bus stops don't have a proper seating arrangement. I don't get that. And I understand why people can request their own, but that seems like that's your job and that people can request to be the supplement. The DOT should take a huge program, a huge initiative to, in fact, put people together to actually fix the problem and then allow people also to supplement. 40% or 80% of no shelter, to me, it means the DOT needs to up their game. I don't mean to be critical, but I always am, so you wouldn't know who I was if I wasn't critical.
Thank you, Marissa.
Yes.
And thank you, Colleen. We all
Thank you.
understand, we understand all the parties, all the different perspectives, you know?
Yes,
Okay.
great, thank you very much, thank you for the comments. Miriam, thank you so much for your presentation. And as we'll be discussing, we're canvassing the district, including on this issue. So, any comments that we have with DOT officially, I'm thinking we save for the results of that.
Right.
Thank you, Marissa. And Miriam, thank you so much. Okay, moving on to item 4. This is the news that the NYPD is starting to issue criminal summons for biking activity. Did everyone get a chance to read the articles I sent around, both from Streets blog? Interestingly, all the other news sources were all just quoting from Streets blog. They're really the ones on top of this. I think there were 2 articles. There should have been a couple, if there weren't. I just saw one.
We bought a few articles.
All right, yeah, Street blog had a couple,
Oh, yeah, it's only found one in the Dropbox.
whoops.
I mean, I feel like I read the one that,
Okay.
I think the information I need.
Sorry about that. So do people have thoughts, feelings?
Well, I think the issue is that, how can we treat differently the different mode of, motion? If for transportation, the cars and the drivers are treated one way, why would you treat the cyclist another way? And I've been thinking about that and I think it sends a horrible message and it's not good. But if you want to enforce and their whole mode of operation is, which we know is wrong, because in 1980, they were enforcing biking and they didn't need to have registration. So I also read, did you read the article where the judge, when they were meeting with all the bicyclists, were giving them
A lecture.
and not a ticket. So, it looks to me that this process has become like an education in a sense. It's a little rough for the education, but it is now an education. And then they were not giving them tickets. They were just giving them a lecture on what they should do. And to some of them, they were telling them, you don't have a ticket if you behave for 6 months. So they were just kind of, so it seems that the judges got it and understood what the problem was and what should be done. And so now I am there saying, on one hand, it's good they go to the judge and it's good that the people tell them, you can't do that. It's bad that we don't do the same thing with the driver at all. And at least that's where I am. It's not, let's say it's not black and white. It's black and white. We shouldn't have a rule which is different for bikes than cars. But if they are sending them and giving them an education, maybe that's not that bad.
Question. So for cars today, for like these classes of offenses.
Right.
Do you get a summons to criminal court if you run a red light, or do you?
It's traffic
It's a
ticket that you send to you.
That's why, that's what is so upsetting,
If
is
you
that
drive the wrong way, do you get a summons to criminal court?
I mean, they're probably
they're probably,
thresholds, but the ones the examples that we're seeing.
Yeah, they're driving the wrong way. It's a very common thing with bikes. Cars, I think,
But,
for
you know-
self-preservation reasons, not a very common.
No,
thing.
but cars parked on the sidewalk, which happen all the time, we know
Yeah.
that, right? They are just getting a ticket if we are lucky, right? So.
If we're lucky.
David,
So the main problem also is, and even though it's not directly involved, it's the base, is the infrastructure, when the infrastructure is set up. And it's like Christine says, cycles like bees. You know we need them, but sometimes they annoy you. They're not such a threat, but they scare you. And that's what's happening. The commissioner, Tish, is getting a lot of calls and complaints
From our mother.
from, not just her mother, I mean, it's, but obviously, but it's from that whole, right. So she's getting complaints and stuff from her people. The thing is, maybe what we should do is have the commissioner ride a bike with us or something like that. She's young enough to do this. She's able, you
Well,
know.
that's for transportation alternative, we are not going to do as community board,
Well, we couldn't,
right?
if we're gonna write a letter, we could at least offer her that, let you work to see what it is from a bicycle person's perspective. Because it's very different, see pedestrians on phones, walking into bike lanes and stuff like that. They don't see that because they don't ride. Same with, I don't drive a car, so I don't know what it is from a driver's perspective. But I know I don't know what it is, and I observe myself and listen to what drivers have to say. That, I expect the same respect as a cyclist, for them to listen to me. The other thing is, for example, the guy that, doored, a pedestrian in Soho, it's Rebecca, nothing happened to him, and the guy was killed. The same thing with the bus on 26th Street, the bus driver was prosecuted, but there was an illegally parked van, double parked van. That was part of the reason the bus driver murdered this cyclist on 26th Street. But nothing happened to the. Killed. Nothing happened to the van driver, who was a double park. That person should have been prosecuted. Same as the person who doored. So, I mean, this is a lot of issues, and I do support decriminalizing, obviously, the cycles. I support it 100%, but I wanna, when we do this, I want this to be effective. And to convince the commissioner that this is the right way to go, and the ethical way to go is not to criminalize cycling.
so, I was, negligent in not, like setting the context for this discussion, just on our own history with this particular subject. We have written several letters, including one just last month, on these quality of life issues. We are aware and have our own concerns about bicyclists, about who are not obeying our traffic laws, going the wrong way, riding on sidewalks, speeding, going through red lights. We are consistent on that. The issue here is, when we ask for enforcement and we ask for more enforcement, on one hand, we're happy to see it, but on the other hand, we never got specific on, we never said we want bikes to be enforced more than cars. Or more harshly, and that bicyclists should be penalized in addition, on top of the way that our drivers are punished. So that's the context in which this discussion is taking place. It's neither, it's not all one thing or the other. We've already asked for more enforcement. It's really a discussion of the nuance of how we want that enforcement to take place. Okay, with that, Charlie, and then.
Yeah, we've been asking for more enforcement for a long time, and it's not hard to enforce a cyclist going the wrong way. If you go onto 9th Avenue, there's a cyclist going the wrong way on every block, all 24 hours a day. And I'm cycling the right way and they get on my nerves. And it should not be hard for a police officer to give a traffic ticket to those people. And if they set up stings and did that for cycling the wrong way, then we would change the behavior. But we've been asking for that for years and we get nothing. And now this new Jessica Tisch initiative has leapfrogged that and saying that we're gonna make it a criminal summons, which is way worse than what happens to somebody running a red light. Also, if you ride your bike down 9th Avenue or you walk to pick up your kids from school down 9th Avenue like I do every day, you will see a car, usually a TLC vehicle, run a red light every intersection, every other intersection. I mean, it's rampant. I wish we had a traffic camera in every single red light, but Albany only gives us a certain amount, I guess. But I think, we've been consistent in saying we want the rules of the road enforced for both cars and for cyclists. And I think it's mind-boggling that we give a worse penalty to someone for, and a lot of the examples that you've read in the news, it's someone who stopped at a red light and they looked around and maybe it's late at night or maybe there's no one there. And they treat a red light as a stop sign. And in many states, most famously in Idaho, it's legal to treat a red light as a stop sign on a bicycle. Personally, I would like to see that in New York, where you stop and you look both ways and there's no one there. But it's not. But I think the idea that you could be in a 2,000-pound vehicle running a red light or, you know, turning in a red light when there's pedestrians in the crosswalk and get a ticket, but you have to go show up to court. And even if you do get an ACD where you get off for 6 months, that's very onerous for people to have that on their record for 6 months.
Thank you. Sarah.
I agree.
Yeah, I just echoing, I think we have been saying that we want like more enforcement of some of these things, like fighting the wrong way. And I agree, and I think the important thing with enforcement, like, is really that if you do something, there will be a consequence, not the severity of the consequence. I would say writ large in general for enforcement is people are not that responsive, you know, unfortunately, like, to severity of consequences. But people are, if it's like, you know, if you do this, you will get ticketed at a much higher frequency. I think people are much more responsive to that. That's a much more effective, like, behavioral lever. So more tickets good, but tickets not criminal court summons. And yeah, I think the article touched on it, but I do feel like for the many people who are delivery drivers, like, especially or just other, you know, people have more challenging, like, life circumstances, like, criminal court summons is like a really big burden. Like, if to get day off work potentially, if you miss it, then you could be in more legal trouble. People may not understand the court system, but yeah, it seems like cruel basically to do that, especially when you're not doing it for a car doing the same thing, which is getting much more danger. I did think the thing about, like, what do you do about people who don't pay the tickets since they don't have a license to even suspend? I thought it was interesting. I don't think that's like a compelling reason in and of itself, but I would be kind of curious if people have thoughts on what would be a better option. Since, I mean, as you pointed out, like, the bike laws have been being enforced since the 80s. Like, there must be something to do, but what is the best option for repeated?
My answer to that would be, you know, like, when there are unpaid parking tickets, I mean, people start getting their cars booted or towed, and here a lot of these violations are e-bikes that are very valuable to these drivers, and so I would think that the eventual consequence of multiple tickets that are not responded to would be seizure of the bike.
I think that's
civilly, like, you know,
yeah, I think if we read a letter, I would think that would be something to consult. Like, in the rare case if someone gets 3, 4, 5 tickets and doesn't pay them, like, there is another action that will be very effective that does not require licensure or criminal court or any of that. And I believe that 99% of people get 1 ticket and are, you know, not having to go to criminal court, but given all this kind of cruel treatment.
Very fun.
I mean, we've been asking for enforcement. I don't think it should be worse than cars, but, like, there should be something, right? I see more consequences than we have now, so, like, is it great that you have to show up to the court and talk about it? Like, no, but the same drivers are doing the same behavior over and over and over again. And, like, and we could throw in the petty thefts here too, right? Like, so at some point, like, you have to have more enforcement and more of a penalty than what we had before. I don't think it should be criminal court because that's not fair to drivers, but I think we should emphasize that you want more enforcement.
Yeah. We can re-emphasize that again in our letter. I would say, you know, the only one point that I haven't brought up here, that is a real motivator for me to be opposed to the current regime of criminal summonses is, you know, the immigration consequences in today's environment. I do think maybe this could be a different conversation 1 year ago. I mean, I still think we would have the same points here, but the thing that really scares me the most is immigrants who may not be here legally or may have, you know, their own immigration issues, or even if they're here seeking asylum, we know this. Even if they are here seeking asylum, even if they have a court order prohibiting the government, enjoining the government from deporting them, This government cannot be trusted. This government will break the law. This government will do everything in its power to identify and boot and immigrants to countries that are not even their own. And so I think it is reprehensible that this city would do anything that would assist this administration in identifying and deporting immigrants who are otherwise may either be here unlawfully, but on a lawful process to get to, because they're seeking asylum or whatever it might be. So, I would like to stress that point, in our letter as well.
So I'm hearing, we want enforcement. That's clear. It used to be that enforcement can be done with the current tools. So we don't understand why the step up to criminalization, especially because the same step up was done or was not done for drivers of cars, right? So why the discrepancy and the major concern about the exposure to immigration policy, which is pretty invasive and unfair right now. And so if we have those three things, I think we are essentially saying, consistent with what we have said, consistent with the fact we want enforcement, but saying the methods seems over the top.
And I've taken down notes on what everyone said, and we'll try to also incorporate, I think most of the comment, I agree with most everything that's said here. We do have people online who do want to comment on this.
Okay.
Who may have different feelings than we do. So, Janine, can you move up people over in order of hands raised, and we'll hear from the public?
Yep, Sandy, Ron, and then Marissa.
Good evening.
And
Thanks for having me. There is a difference, guys. Let's be clear. When a scofflaw driver rides off into the sunset, you either have cameras or you have an ID that would nail that scofflaw driver. You don't have it when you're on a bike and you break a law and you're running off into the hinterlands. New York Police Department enforcement against reckless cyclists running red lights isn't merely about criminalizing bikers. It's about protecting pedestrians like me, an 80-year-old, from harm in a city struggling with accountability of all sorts. Groups like Transportation Alternatives claim to define true public safety, but they've refused to support even modest measures like Priscilla's Law, which would make riders identifiable and deter dangerous behavior. That is not progressive, that is selective. TA has fought helmet laws, ignored rising e-bike injuries, and downplayed the growing risks of high-speed, heavy micro-mobility vehicles in mixed-use spaces. While they now protest enforcement, they've stayed silent for years as communities raised alarms about sidewalk speeding, hit and runs, and collisions. So when victims couldn't even identify the rider, TA looked the other way, and to everyone's chagrin, TA seems to be running the DOT and has co-opted many of our lawmakers who've been cavalier, ignoring our fears for our safety, just to walk in our city. So they say that e-bike license plates and registration is unfair, but these are basic tools for accountability. Priscilla's Law doesn't target any group. It applies to all, including city bike renters. So why the opposition? Follow the money. TA's funding comes from corporate interests like Lyft and Uber, as well as DoorDash and other food delivery investors and companies that profit from the status quo. So in closing, what I want to say is, had TA supported fair, inclusive reforms earlier, I might not need police crackdowns now. Calling for e-bike visible IDs, shared responsibility, and common sense rules will give better odds to protect me from being hit. No more double standards, no more excuses. Public safety belongs to everyone, not just the loudest lobby. Thank you.
Sandy, thank you so much for the comments. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I just wanted Sandy, this is Community Board 4. And so we appreciate all your comments about TA, but this is a board which has its own, opinion, and 50 members with its own opinions. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, except that you're on the board of TA, so you have
Yes.
every conflict of interest that would be relevant to your community board, no?
No, I don't, and we have made resolution which illustrate that over and over and over again. And the board of, the conflict of interest board has indicated very clearly that this is not a conflict. So I respect your opinion, but be totally aware that this board and myself, we have our independent opinions.
It's a Trojan horse, with all due respect, Christine, a Trojan horse.
I'm gonna move on just because we're just to stop the back and forth. But I really do appreciate the comments, Sandy, and the preparation that went into them. And we will all be discussing before we vote on anything. So thank you. Ron.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Let me just first say that I'm Commissioner Tisch does not need my defense, and but I'm going to defend her anyway, because she says she explains why she moved toward criminal summonses, and the reason is because for 4 years, the #1 complaint of police precincts across the city and the #1 complaint to city council members was e-bikes. What are you going to do about e-bikes? So this is where it's coming from. 4 years, and it's no better. It's no better at all. Why you say, can't you just write regular tickets? Because there is no recourse. They can just ignore them. There's no license, there's no registration, you can't suspend a license. And remember, these things are going, 25 miles an hour, and they flee. So the police can stand on the corner and say, stop. If they don't stop, what are you going to do? The way you solve that is you put a license plate on it. Then you take the police even out of the equation because the cameras will do the work. I don't understand what the hue and cry is. As a matter of fact, you're asked for equivalency between automobiles and e-vehicles in the traffic ticket versus the criminal summons. Well, you'll get equivalency between automobiles and e-vehicles when you pass Priscilla's Law, which licenses and registers all e-vehicles. They are motor vehicles. They are hurting people just like cars, and maybe worse than cars in the city. And then they're identifiable, and then everybody will get the same tickets. But the reason they're getting criminal tickets, I believe what Commissioner Tisch says, and I believe what Chief Glynn, the head of the New Quality of Life Division, told me directly, is that is the #1 issue. It's dangerous. We have to solve it. And, well, witness certainly got their attention. And now the bike riders who are getting the criminal summonses and having to show up in court, and as Christine said, get a warning, whatever, it still serves the same purpose. The publicity is out. People are hearing this is what's happening. That may deter some people. I don't know. But the fact that they are called into court, the judges are telling them, the reason you're here is because you need to wise up and look out for these other people in this city who you're hurting. And if that's the result of this, God bless Commissioner Tisch. That's all I have to say. And let me just have to mention the Idaho stop. The Idaho stop is in Idaho. On the fields on either side are potatoes. And here in New York, on either side are people, not potatoes. So that's a spurious argument. So now I got my dander up and I got to go to bed, and I've got all night thinking, what did I miss for telling them? So thank you all.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Next is Marissa.
Okay, so first of all, I have to say a couple of things. It cannot ever be equal unless they all have licenses. And I'm very disturbed that it seems like this committee has already decided the kind of letter it's going to write. Because the first woman that spoke was articulate and laid it out perfectly. No one is against bike riders. We're against bike cowboys. All right. And they are on city bikes and they flip you off if you say you almost hit me. I was knocked down by a regular bike. There's nothing you can do. And why it seems our community board is being deaf. And I'm sorry, Christine, it is a conflict of interest that you're on the board of transportation alternatives and on the transportation committee. I would like to see in writing from the conflict of interest board that you are waived, first of all. But secondly, you cannot have parity with a car and a bike. When the car gets booted, if it has too many tickets, how do you boot the bike? I think bikes should be removed from people. That'll stop them from running the wrong way. Okay. I can't stand seeing one more older person frightened, and that's why they fall. You know, if you break a hip, it's over. All right. So guys, I implore this good committee, because you've really sounded sensible, but do not write this letter without listening to the people that are talking. And I'll tell you about the deliveristas. I saw Christine and Brad and all the lollipop group handing out things to the deliveristas and saying, please don't ride the wrong way. It didn't work. If they hear that they could go to court and possibly ICE, they won't ride the wrong way anymore. And I don't want that to have to be the way that we educate people, but everything else is not working. And our citizens, New Yorkers, are being hurt. Our own NYPD captain said online in front of an audience, I'm more afraid of getting hit by a bike than by a car. So I implore you again to really take seriously the few people that have taken the time to come here and say, just license the damn things. A $5 a year license on every adult bike, but definitely these e-bikes and the mopeds and the city bikes where you can't trace them. So when you say, why would you be different with a car? There's no parity. You don't have a license plate. You don't have any identification at all. And I don't want our police giving out tickets to bicycles. I want them catching criminals. Okay. Now, again, I got my dandruff because so did Ron, but please don't write this letter in a vacuum. You've got people here, your community board, you're hearing from your community. And ESVA has 1,200 members now because of this. These people have died. People have been maimed for life. A celloist who's lost her career. All right, I'm done. Really, I just want to know you're going to take it seriously, and that I'm going to get a copy of the conflict of interest board saying that Christine Berthet is waived for conflict of interest, because I don't believe it.
Okay. Thank you. I'll ask that, any comments are not directed at any particular member of the board going forward, but I do think the fact that we haven't voted yet on any letter should show you that we are listening to public comments. And with that, we have another public comment. I see Richard. And this will be, if there's anyone else who wants to speak on this, now's the time to raise your hand. Otherwise, we need to move on. Richard, go ahead. Richard, you're muted. You're still muted. Let me see if I can unmute you. I cannot.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Oh, good. I just want to say briefly, because I can't say it any better than Ron and Marissa have, but I did go down to the city council hearing for Priscilla's Law to testify. And I was shocked to see that there were over 100 people there. And I was shocked to see that the transportation committee of the city council, a couple of people said what they thought, and then they did not stay to hear 100 people testify for Priscilla's Law. I believe that the situation we're in now is because you haven't been listening. The city council hasn't been listening. No one has been listening to their constituencies. There is no licensing, no accountability. You can get hit on the street by a city bike or an e-bike, and you have no recourse. So I agree with Marissa, especially, please do not write this letter without listening to your community.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Just a point.
And so, the first public comments, and now we'll turn it back to community discussion. Go ahead, David.
Point of the City Bike has a mechanism where you can't go past where you can't go past a certain speed. It prevents you. The second thing is, when I take out an electric City Bike, let's say God forbid, it should never happen, I hit somebody on Grand and Christie. They know, they have a GPS tracker, and they would know the time. They're okay, David Warren took out this bike. And he was going from where I live in Midtown to downtown Brooklyn where I work, and they'd be able to say, okay, no, he hit them. So there is a tracking with City Bike, the other electric bikes, there is not. But in part of the issue is it's infrastructure and it's vulture capitalism forcing these deliveristas to go the way they go. So I mean, the problem that our constituents have said is a serious problem. But the solution is where we have a departure of ways. It is a problem, but the basic thing is infrastructure. And the way the roads are designed. That's the major thing. And instead, we're going after the lowest hanging fruit. Because it's obvious, like Christine says, the bees. I always love that analogy.
Yeah, that's good.
So, I guess my question just generally is one or two questions. Is one, is anything that we've heard from the public, does that impact anyone's feelings about this letter? Are there things that we would want to change? And the second thing I want to say is, I believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, we previously did take a position on the licensing of e-bikes, and we were previously against it. I need to go back to the letter to provide the details of our reasoning, but it is just a question on the table of, do we reconsider that position? Based on where we are now, which is the criminalization of this behavior, which is something that I don't think any of us expected to see at the time. So those two questions are on the table. Charlie.
Yeah, we definitely did discuss licensing for e-bikes, I think last year. I know Senator Foilman has a bill that was proposing to license commercial e-bikes, but we discussed all the pros and cons and that we want to encourage people to get e-bikes. There's multiple dads at my local elementary school and moms who bike e-cargo bikes to take their kids to school. And I don't think they should be, have to jump through hoops to do that. But I don't think that's what this letter is about. This letter is reacting to cyclists are getting criminal summons. And we've litigated the licensing for e-bikes prior. We can do that again if we think we should. The final thing I want to say is that the Idaho stop was created in Idaho in 1982, where I'm sure there are many potatoes, but it has since been adopted in some capacity in Delaware, Arkansas, Oregon, Washington, Utah, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Colorado, Washington, DC, Minnesota, Alaska, and New Mexico. So just point of clarification.
Can you further point of clarification, can you just define the Idaho stop one more time?
Idaho stop is when cyclists are allowed to treat a stop sign as a yield and a red light as a stop sign.
Thank you. Okay. Thomas, go ahead, sorry.
Can I just clarify that this is a letter to NYPD? Telling them about the licensing is not relevant to Commissioner Tisch, neither is the Idaho stop, for example. So I think we should be narrowly focused on that. If we want to talk about licensing again later, great. For the Idaho stop, great. But the letter is not relevant to that.
And I do think we should emphasize that, like, there are other options for, other than criminal summons, for addressing repeat offenders. Like, this is not the only thing we can do, or, well, less repeat offenders, more just people who get tickets and don't pay them, like.
Send to South.
So just what?
So just confiscate the bikes, I mean, that was.
But
So you need to put something in the letter, you can't just, you have to. come
No,
up
I
with
know, but I'm saying that's, I think I just wanna, like, I think that's, I mean, that's the concern that people brought up was like, okay, well, if you don't have licenses, like, what do you do when people just choose not to pay the tickets? Or you have like repeated offenders, like, hard to deal with that. And I think like, there actually is like a good policy options for that.
So if you're giving people tickets, never give them a ticket based on the vehicle, you give them a ticket based on their identification, right?
Yeah.
So if they don't show up, if they don't pay the ticket, you try to find them.
Yeah, they have to be, if they're pulled over again.
If they have proper identification, if they don't have proper identification, or you want the cop to chase somebody, if he's going against a light.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a license plate where you can see someone, they have to be pulled over again.
Yeah, the 10th precinct just made a presentation at a block association. I think they used to have 140, 145 officers there. They're probably below 100 at this point. So there's a problem in a lot of these, to rely on NYPD to do this is asking a lot, given the circumstances of the city. So we have to decide whether we want to do something with licensing in place, where there's insurance involved and everything else, just like a car. I mean, you get hit by a person on a bike. If he has a license, he's gonna get a summons, what do? You go to the hospital, you pay that out of pocket. Right,
So it sounds like.
There's a whole lot of stuff going on.
Sure, so it sounds like you would like us to potentially, for a future meeting, reconsider our position on licensing and have that for another discussion and vote. But I do appreciate just the statement though, that this letter is to the NYPD, and so really talking about licensing schemes is just not gonna be relevant.
I was just responding to the people who spoke, who said like cars are different than bikes because they don't have licensing, how do you do enforcement? And I think that's why I want to just be like, one thing to incorporate in our letter is there are other options. It's not like.
But I think Alan's point is that there are no other options, like without licensing, the other options are, so even my point about seizing bikes, I think Alan's point is like, that's not. It may not be effective unless we're actually licensing the bikes.
But isn't, let's say, I think the point they are making about the equivalency is pretty logical, right? We can't say the two things are, the penalties are not equivalent, but the structure and is not equivalent. So I kind of react to that in a positive, I acknowledge that this is logically makes sense, but I think our letter is more of, criminal is really opening the door to the immigration issues, right? And if it was the same process, but it was not criminal, I don't think we would have a problem. Because again, sending the people to a judge and the judge saying, this is wrong and you better behave in the next 6 months is not a bad thing. We all said it needs to be an education. How do you do the education which has an impact, right? So that has an impact. I don't think it should be criminal, that's all. That's all.
And only just play devil's advocate for that, I think they would say the only reason that they go to court is because they've been criminally, because they've been.
And that's, I'm questioning that, I'm questioning that, first of all, the criminal or not, it gives you the same workload for NYPD, right? You have to be out there and you have to stop people. And so that's neutral from the NYPD, but then once you catch them, instead of giving them a ticket that you never know is going to be paid, you send them to the judge or to an equivalent. And in our proposal, we had like the Midtown court as a solution, right? Send them to the Midtown court. Somebody who looks like a judge is going to say, look, this is really bad. Right.
To take offense.
This is really bad. You can't do that, blah, 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 and you have 6 months to behave. And that's pretty much what we had suggested. It's like, yes, and the whole criminality is an issue for the immigration. If we were not in the world where we are, I mean, the criminality would make no difference. I mean, as long as you have to take half a day off, you do, right?
Right, I'm one more, and then I think I'm gonna try to wrap this up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so 3 really quick thoughts, right? So the NYPD is doing what they can in their confines to do stuff about this issue, right? But that's the issue of criminal violations. This is really up to the legislators, for the city council to pass a law, kind of like what they did with the minimum wage law for app-based delivery drivers. With that, they should have included that just like restaurant delivery drivers have ID tags and vests associated with them, right?
They did.
Right now, there's no way to track it.
They did.
A long time ago.
It is.
No, that's what I just said. The restaurant-based drivers still have to do that.
Right.
So that's still a law, the restaurant-based driver, like the Chinese
Yeah.
restaurant, still has to have an ID attached to that delivery.
And
driver.
we should do that for
So,
the apps.
yeah, they should have done that in the same bill,
Right.
that's my issue, so they should
Right.
have done the same exact bill, require them to ID. That would make it so if they do get issued a civil summons, you can garnish wages, and the OF courts can do that, the OF courts, if you don't pay your summons,
Right.
it's automatically adjudicated as that you're guilty, and then you owe the city that money, and then they will garnish that wage tracked by your ID number. This is a legislator issue that the legislative unit did not do. So I get what Jessica's trying to do, and I think she's actually doing the right thing, because it's giving light to this issue. If she wasn't doing this, nothing would be happening.
Mhm. So that's another one thing that we can raise.
Yeah.
In our solutions is to say, why not apply the statute of the restaurant-based delivery to the app-based delivery, which include an identification, let's not call that.
The only reason I wouldn't wanna include that in this letter is for the same reason that I don't wanna include the licensing scheme, like it's a letter meant for the
Right.
legislator, which is why, for me to wrap this conversation up. I think it should be 2 votes, I think we would stick with, just from here comment, sort of stick with the letter that we were planning on writing, but. Taking a separate vote, and this will, to agree that we are going to discuss and have for public hearing and public comment. The licensing issue again, and or other legislative solutions to this problem. And I would make those 2 separate votes, that would be my proposal.
So what would be this letter?
This letter is just saying, I think it's saying, starting with, we acknowledge as we have. That this is an incredibly important issue, and we appreciate that this is the path you've taken has definitely highlighted this issue again. And see all of our previous requests to you for additional enforcement. Part 2, but when we ask for additional enforcement, this isn't necessarily what we meant, and we have many concerns about the criminalization, including the discrepancy between cars and
I
bikes.
don't think you want to say that.
Because of the licensing.
Yeah, because the discrepancy, they're right, it's not.
But it's 2 separate issues.
Yeah.
Discrepancy is you run a red light, you
Yeah.
get a ticket,
Yeah.
you run a red light, you go to
It's
criminal
still a
court.
good
That's a
argument.
massive discrepancy.
It's still a good argument, even if the other part is true as well.
They can argue that on the license debate,
Yeah.
they can argue that it's discrepancy, and
Right.
they may or may not be right.
Right,
But on
but
this issue, it's.
Yeah, I still think they're 2 separate, I still think the argument holds. Again.
And the immigration.
Immigration was 2, and then there was a third, just general comment. Infrastructure would be,
Well, I don't
well,
know that
that's not for,
infrastructure is
that's not for this letter.
That's
And
it.
just generally,
I think that's it, you don't need anything else.
yes, I think that's right, I'll go back and check the tape, and then I will include, there were additional comments that would be appropriate for this letter that I'll include for all of your comment as we do, but that's the general gist of the letter. Is there a motion?
But I think as Max pointed out, the issue with the criminalization is what brought this to a head.
Right.
Now, I don't think you have to say you're in favor or not in favor, but you want to see where we can work on this in different ways that you're saying, but we should mention the fact that this has become a hot issue. And, we sort of want to thank her in some way.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I was trying to start with that as and I will incorporate that.
You know what, cause she's hearing from.
Yeah, no, we appreciate, again, literally,
Anti-bike.
this quality of, simultaneously, as we were writing this letter, and, she's moving a little bit ahead of us, and maybe in a direction that we wanna steer slightly differently, that's all that's happening. So, can I get a motion on that? We did get a motion on that letter, is there a second? All those in favor? Is anyone opposed to the letter? Is anyone present not eligible? Okay, let's take a separate vote on bringing this back, bringing the licensing issue. Well, I'm worried that once we get to the full board, I'd like to be able to say at full board that I'd just like to be able to say at full board that we are taking up separately the licensing issue, and we're committed to that.
Okay.
The public hearing, I feel good about that, so, all of the motion for that, for
Motion.
talking about licensing, other legislative fixes to the problem.
Right.
Legislative fixes.
Legislative fixes is
Oh,
the
yeah.
topic of, is the topic of the
Liability.
liability, all the things, and we'll go back, basically revisiting something we already have done, but maybe we want to update it.
Yeah.
So, Motion, was there a motion?
Motion.
Yeah.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Great. And no one opposed, that's excellent. We are concluding this topic. Thank you all so much to everyone online from the public who participated. I hope this discussion showed you that we do listen to your comments.
They left.
No, they must still be attendees. And so, we will be putting on, from this vote, a discussion on legislative fixes, and I'm sure, and I hope you will be in attendance. Okay, it is now 8:48.
And then they still lose it.
And then I said, so, we should go, no, so, I guess before we go, well, Alice. Let's ask first, how long do you think your presentation is?
Nobody asked me any questions, I go by really fast.
Okay, I bet you can do it in 5 minutes. Yeah, great.
5 minutes.
All right, I'm gonna give Alice 5 minutes, more for our update, and this is part of the, what's that? Oh, sure. What's in the Dropbox or?
And you should
Oh, wait,
see the
Janine-
letters
Janine
I'm
might
getting from these people.
Janine's gonna do
You are-
that too, and then you can say.
Do what?
This is part of our knowledge transfer projects, this is the first presentation.
Letters.
Very exciting, honestly, I'm a little scared that this sets the bar like ridiculously high, but enjoy the life.
Wow, what a compliment, thank you.
Well, I went to the presentation early, and yeah, so, I'm gonna, let Alice take it away, go ahead.
Great, hi, I'm Alice Wong, I am a committee board member and also on the transportation committee. My responsibilities tonight is to inform you of the secondary street sign policy for Manhattan CB4. Next slide.
Why don't you push it? You're saying.
What is it? It is a secondary street sign similar to the flat panel panels that number our streets and avenues now, as you see in this photo. Just, so how this come about? The law and New York City Administrative Code 19-159.2 allows us to have code naming of street signs, which is called the San Martin Street Naming Policy. It was signed into law in 2003, and it will be built in 2007, and is managed by the Department of Transportation. Why do we have this law? Is because it's usually meant to honor members of notable entities that have done services to Manhattan before. This does not replace the primary street signs, which is the avenues and the street numbers, and is typically mounted either above or below the primary street sign. Within Manhattan CB4, which is the area of 14th Street to 26th Street between 8th Avenue and West Side Highway, and then from 26th Street to 59th Street, 8th Avenue to the West Side Highway, we currently have 10 designated secondary street signing. 4 of them are in Hill's Kitchen, 6 of them are in Chelsea. What is the sponsorship process should you be interested? A person or groups must sponsor the ceremony name, then they propose the area to the community board, and then they must gather all of the required documentation and then present that to community board, at which point we review the application. And next slide is that the requirements is for extraordinary cases. The prospective honoree must be deceased for a period of at least 1 year for consideration and demonstrate extraordinary historical significance within the CB4 district. If you are an individual, you must have at least 10 years minimum community involvement, or if you're an organization, at least 50 years. An organization cannot be a nonprofit, and a nonprofit is defined by the New York State nonprofit corporate law. Most entities start with the 501c.
I thought it did have to be a nonprofit.
Cannot be a nonprofit. Did I say cannot? Must not be a nonprofit.
Must not be a nonprofit?
That's what our thing was. That's what I'm gonna change.
Nor for profit.
Well, we got a chance, I think it's gotta be, no, yeah, it can't be that, we only can't not be, it's gotta be, it has to be a nonprofit.
That's
Probably,
yeah.
so we need to, I mean, there are, yeah, we gotta do it. Great.
This is a working document, I'll get back to you on that.
That's very helpful.
It says
See the
not,
value of
in the
knowledge.
word, it says must not be a for profit.
No, it's correct.
It does say it in the word, not
Must not be not for
profit corporation.
It's very, it's not,
No, but that's,
I just need it. Thank you for calling attention to the fact that the language must be fixed.
I
Great.
will fix the grammar. Okay, so for individual and must have served regular public service to Manhattan Community Board District and must have strong local support for the proposed sign and virtually no oppositions. How do you get strong support? You can also do a petition. There are two ways to do a petition. One way is to have a minimum of 200 signatures, which must include name and addresses from those who either reside or have a business within a 10 square block of the proposed signage. Alternatively, you may also do a petition with 500 signatures, which must include 45 names and addresses for those who either reside or have a business within the Manhattan Community Board District. Then you come to the community board to have your presentation. At this meeting, you must acknowledge that the applicant has reviewed all of the materials and demonstrated knowledge of the prior applications that have either been approved or denied by community board 4. So at this meeting, there are some denials that may happen. For example, in events, either man-made or even Mother Nature, it cannot memorialize victims of either accidents or disasters. It cannot promote commercial retail. And if there is already a secondary street sign for that personal organization, or if there is already a pre-existing secondary street sign for the corner for which you are petitioning for. So some suggestions that we have as alternatives will include either a building block, a sidewalk placement, or a bench placement, none of which is managed by Manhattan MCB4. If you have any questions or are interested in applying for this, you may go to our website listed here or give a call to our office listed here as well. Thank you, and I will make the motion.
I have a correction. Wait, I have a correction too, is like when you have all the steps, the last step is the council, the city council needs to sign it.
Yes.
And they only do that twice here.
Right, and so it's, you can just say.
So, yes,
City council as a step 5, whatever.
after it goes to CB4, we approve the
And
names.
can't override us.
They can't.
They have overridden other
Yes.
community boards in the past.
Right, they can do whatever they want.
Great, sorry, questions?
First, that was
Yeah.
mind blowing.
Yeah, like that's exactly how.
I've left the room. But I did have some questions, just because of the last two that we actually approved and more, towards the Ritchie's corner. How do we follow up with organizations or individuals? So for example, we asked the administrator of the avenues, why not do something at your school on your property? So how do I know if she ever followed up with that? So they wanted to do the corner, but I said, why not do something on a room or door or in front of your building?
Yeah.
How do we follow up? We
call.
Okay, show us the second, okay, thank you. The second was, they actually asked for the 25th corner, but they went to the 26th without coming back to us. How did they make the switch?
Well.
Oh, I think that got it done, like some of these are just get done administratively, that kind of.
I mean, 'cause I do have a different feeling about it. I wanted 20, I'm more.
Yeah, I don't, well, wait, so I don't.
So they moved
don't
it,
remember
we
what happened.
talked about, they came to us and said 25th.
I don't.
And then it
remember
was
what
moved to 26th.
It was.
And then
yeah.
the third part is, how do we get notified when these things are happening?
Well, usually the council member calls us and invites us.
Yeah, but no, that's fair, that's a
For
fair
the
point.
opening.
Listen, I was gonna say that I still have neglected to update some parts of of our policy that we voted on. Including an appendix that was supposed to be in there about examples of those that we denied. I will include that sort of language somewhere in there about the fact that if there are additional changes or requests, or you should make sure you're in contact with the district manager. And I'll go back to the video.
What's the Robert Trent line, did it already cover that?
What's that?
The Robert Trent, was that already covered the ceremony? Oh, she mentioned Robert Trent. Is that Robert?
I think that happened.
What you mean, I didn't know about it. I lived it before.
All right.
Oh, I didn't know.
Any other questions?
What's the notice about that?
Thank
And
you.
then we put this on the web, we put the presentation on the website.
All right. Wait, said, okay. So, I'm trying to think of I'm very cognizant of the time, okay, so we are on the canvassing, instructions. How long is this gonna take?
2 seconds.
Great, okay, so, I'm trying to, did everyone get a chance to download the app and play around with it? No worries if not, but, there is a tutorial that is available. Is it worth going through this tutorial?
If you want to, it should be 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Well, we could do.
we can do it online.
Yeah.
Probably.
It got emailed, so everyone read the tutorial. So basically, let's, can we just pull up the map?
But I put a video.
Yeah, the video's in the Dropbox.
Okay.
Let's pull up a map and let me just talk generally about this and then I'll make this clear.
All right.
So, if you went and saw it, I've blocked out the district into 16 squares. We were 16. We're making fewer now, so we'll work this out. But basically, with the purpose of this canvas, remind everyone, is part one, looking at pedestrian ramps. Pedestrian ramps, as you can see that was the #1 issue or #2 issue in our survey. As you will see in the app, there are several issues that you can report on the pedestrian ramps, including that they're cracked, that there's ponding, that they are often I forget the other ones, but you'll see the list of options. When you're canvassing, I would highly recommend, if possible, to try and go after it's rained as a day that you're canvassing, because even walking around today and seeing that almost every school that has ponding, and I really want to try to capture that if possible. Two, you will notice that I'm hoping that you'll be able to, other than the ponding issue, the DOT has been updating the pedestrian ramps, and you kind of know if it's a newer one, if it has a strip on it that's painted white or red. Doesn't mean that it can't still have issues, but I'm hoping that because you see that, maybe that helps you move through that a little quicker, because it's been more recently updated. The instructions for how so the second issue we are looking at is based on Miriam's presentations to us about locating the stops that don't have shelters or benches. Again, those are options available in the app to comment on. For now, we are just starting with the avenues. So if they're on, make sure you walk the avenue in your assigned block, and upload your information to the app. At the end of this, through our partners at CheckPeds, that we will be supplied with all of the data that we are uploading.
Well, it shows on the website, and then whatever you have on the app, it goes on the website, and then you can download.
Great.
So it creates a spreadsheet.
Excellent, which is why I say this will come back up in a letter that we will attach. Not only will it be going directly to the DOT, but also we can attach. We will see the work that we do. We will be able to actually look and know collectively what the issues are and be able to call that out in a letter, which I think is really important and wonderful. I was going to have us sign up for Squares Now. That is probably not the best use of our time. The link is available. If you go,
It's in the Dropbox.
if it's in the Dropbox, I will email it out again. If you go into the side, Janine, can you just open up, just click on Square One?
You can add the.
Just click on Square One, you can see that. Yeah, go back first. Yeah, so you can just retitle the square name, right?
You do, but we.
I will make sure that you can edit it.
We can just send you a number. Did you put A, B, C, D? You can do that, square 2. We need to send you an email.
Alright, I guess I'm gonna edit this. Send me an email. Well, no, the problem is people are gonna sign up, multiple people will sign up for. What's that?
Just send a cheat sheet.
So do it now.
Yeah,
why can't we do
Go
it
around
now?
the room. That's easy. It's not a big deal.
Okay, alright, real quick, sorry, the only thing I ask is, I just wanna do this in the order of, if you think that you will be limited either in time or in capacity, because for whatever reason, I would like those people to go first, because I did purposely make these somewhat different sizes.
I'll take the first two. Limited in capacity.
Well, hold on, can we go back to,
I got it.
this is why this is a little hard, hold on, let me just do it. Can you, I'm gonna go on and do it myself, but, Janine, can you just pull up the full map again so everyone can see it? And then,
Right,
hold on.
I do, it was 40.
Wait.
It was.
You guys do these. These two.
Okay. I'm going and, all right, which one?
West 40th.
West 40th, that's
Which
square
Where
7. Okay.
is that?
What's it, where are we?
Oh boy, why can't I edit the view there? Oh, shit.
They don't do.
Forget. Square 7 is now.
Where's square 7?
It's.
The yellow.
No,
Oh, the yellow.
Wasn't this what you wanted? The yellow. You're getting.
Oh,
no, that's, oh, yeah, it
Yes,
is.
that's it.
Oh, no, I wanted the other one.
which orange one? She wants the orange one.
Oh, the blue one.
I think that.
Oh, the purple.
I want
this.
All right, I'm gonna send this out, I'm going to make it editable. You can put it editable, you can put your own name in, I just ask that if you have more capacity and the full, and are generally available and can walk well, all those things, please try to take one of the larger pods. Again, we have, hopefully we can get this done in the next month, is the goal. If there are issues, please let me know. Obviously, I'm hoping also we can all use our, obviously they abut each other. So if when you get to the point on your square that abuts another square, you are responsible for, for example, if it is the orange up here, right? If it is the orange, you are going to, and you are going to do the northeast corner of this intersection, and purple will do the northwest corner, right? This should be all.
The directive is to report problems.
And the directive is to report problems.
If something's good, we don't.
We don't do anything if something's good. That is the assignment. If there are questions, issues, there are probably things that I'm not anticipating, please just email me so that I can update the group. I'll try to get a separate email thread going.
Right.
But I will resend this out tonight, making it editable.
Have you included the edge of the sidewalk,
Age?
the edge?
The edge.
Where
The curve.
kind of crack.
Yeah.
If it's generally near the pedestrian ramp and there is an issue that you think would make it difficult for someone either who has mobility issues or just any sort of impairment, for including visual impairment, then yes, please.
How do we handle the borders of our district? Like on 8th Avenue, we only have the west side of 8th
Yes,
Avenue.
Yes, that's correct.
We don't bother with the east side.
No.
On the east side, I think
They're on their own.
all right, that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you all for your.
And if you have
So,
questions
Donald Trump,
about,
thank you all very much for your attention to this matter.
if you have questions about the app, you can send me the emails.
Okay, great. Christine, number 7 is 8.
Yeah, number 7, the bothering thing is like on 37th Street, the Port Authority has enclosed most of the sidewalk for half the block. And they have removed a mid-block pedestrian crossing. And then when they went to DOT and said, let's move the pedestrian crossing a little further, like 20 feet, right? Now DOT is saying, no, we don't want to move it. It's going to bother parking, whatever reason. So I just want to prepare a letter. I have my, inside the DOT kind of, efforts going on, but I want to prepare a letter saying this is unacceptable and, it is.
Why do you want to move it?
Why? Because they don't want to move it.
No, why does Port Authority want to move?
They had to, because they installed the construction platform, the construction, staging, excuse me. And it goes all the way in front of the, of the,
DOT doesn't want to move it.
so now DOT says, well, tough, I don't want to move it. So I want to have a letter, it's possible that it will be resolved positively, but if not, I want to have a letter that we send, and it's very simple letter, you'll send it around, you'll see it around.
Great.
It's a letter about, yes, you need to move it because people are coming out of the supermarket and they don't have any visibility of the street. And you need to have something that tells the cars to slow down.
Anyone, any questions? Anyone opposed? Anyone online? Great, good. Okay.
Motion for
Motion, anyone second? Okay, all those in favor?
Great.
7.
Where are we?
Do we have new business?
We have one new business, it's called the Avenue.
I'm sorry, we have another hour. No, don't you dare.
The Avenue is the next iteration of a casino to be installed at 40th Street, between 40 and 41st.
Yeah.
On 11th Avenue, which is
Okay.
exactly the entrance of the Lincoln Tunnel.
Oh, my God.
So,
This is Silverstein?
Yeah, yeah. This is.
so Rodney made a list of questions, so this is the scoping document says, this is what we're going to ask them to study, right? So Rodney has made a list, I've made a list. Our usual suspects, right, the traffic, I mean, nothing exceptional. So I just want you to be aware that's going to be included in the letter that will be voted at the full board. And you'll see, I'll circulate the combine from Rodney and I. And I just wanted to be aware of that. And US one study, Max, that's your baby, we had a meeting.
Oh, yeah, yes, we did, Route 9A, US 1, yeah. It was an interesting meeting last night at the Javits Center. It's the first public meeting of a few of them, but it's the first one of the first stage, on the very first stage. So there are about maybe 70 people there from the public. And they divided people up to tables and people wrote their biggest goals or needs for the corridor. And then once it kept popping up, of course, a conflicts between peds and bikes, which we all know about. More east-west connections in the neighborhoods, right? And then delineation of space. So we'll see. And then also taking away later traffic if they can on both sides. So it's either plant screenings for doors or more lanes for bikes. So we're up, and you guys should all get involved in the process.
And the feedback was very uniform.
Yeah, it
I
was.
mean, at every table, people were kind of saying the same thing, which was, protect no turning to, I mean, it was very good.
Yeah.
That the community expressed itself in such a unified way.
And there was some demand for a north-south transportation corridor, so that so mass transit more elevated, just the M12, which we have right now, which just goes southbound, corridor, I mean. So this is where they take all comments and nothing's too big or anything, like this is what they want to hear from us. And there's no money attached to this game, the whole point of this study is gonna figure out what's needed and then get the money after, based on the study.
Yes.
So it's really important,
They're doing more of this, right?
yeah, oh, absolutely, man. Yeah.
Yeah, you should go if you can. It's really a big piece of our neighborhood. We don't think about it, right? The highway and the greenway.
Is it one in June? June coming up? I think there's one online too.
Yeah, that's the one that's coming up, it's a virtual session, it's not in person, but you should definitely, because they take this feedback really seriously, it goes with that document.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So that's.
Or just, for when you are there, those items, we can always continue to point them to the letter that we've already written to them and say,
Right,
comments have been reflected,
yes,
okay.
yes.
Great.
And then Port Authority, next week, they are going to have a breaking ground ceremony on the decks. Yeah, on the deck, and so this is really happening.
That's
so exciting.
Who
And
gets
they-
to do the first shovel?
The shovel, I mean, it's all cement. I don't know who's going to shovel.
Well,
that.
but we the honorary first, who gets to be the person?
Probably somebody from the Port Authority or an elected official to make them feel good.
What is that happening? What's that?
It's the 29, in
You have
the
to bring
morning.
your own stones. but-
And last week there was a presentation to WPE and it was funny because it was everybody was all over the place asking questions, so that was interesting.
So there's an article saying that
Yeah.
we're worried we're not getting the park, but we're getting the park, right?
Well, it was a good question, and Matt Green raised that question and said, look, your budget is tight. And the park is at the end of 10 years, will there be any money left? And so that was a very legitimate question. I am fairly confident we will get it, but that's a very possible thing, that at the end of the 10 years, people are going to say, we don't have money. So we always should be vigilant about that, and I think we had an internal discussion saying, a little later on, we will maybe raise that issue again. But yes, it is written in the POA and it's written everywhere.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to.
Okay, well, very well. Thank you all so much, as always. I think it's the very productive. meeting.
Very good meeting.
Janine, thank you so much. Miriam, thank you so much. See you so on.
Excellent.
And,
Oh, okay, so I'm going to send an email around, say who is the next, I'm going to name the next person.